All right, good evening, everybody. 1 minute to go here, so please find a seat. I have a FinCom. I think I have a select board and town administrator. We'll give it a minute. All right, folks, get comfortable. We're going to start in just a few minutes, waiting for the vocal ensemble to come out and our attorney to return to the stage. Just another minute or two. Good evening. Wow. Good evening, everybody. All right, now it's modulated. We got it. Good evening. My name is Dennis Reap, and I'm the elected town moderator. On behalf of elected and appointed officials of the town, welcome, and thank you for coming to this annual town meeting. I hereby call the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting of the town of Boxborough to order. We'll start out tonight with a safety moment. I guess it's overstating the obvious that it's very hot. So there is water in the back corners available. If you or anyone near you is feeling distress from the heat, we have Burke here, the Boxborough Emergency Reserve Corps. They're in some green vests. I've seen a few of them around. Anyway, if you have any kind of heat-related concerns, you can always have a point of order, question, go up, and we'll stop and address any of those concerns. So that's the safety moment. Moving on to our opening ceremony, I'll ask you all to stand for our national anthem, performed by the Blanchard Memorial Vocal Ensemble under the direction of Margie Callahan and accompanied on piano by 6th grader Zoe Lee. Okay, please remain standing while Daria Kocherova will lead us in a voluntary Pledge of Allegiance.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. You may be seated.
All right, and thank you, students. Okay, we have a number of people up front involved with the business of town meeting tonight. The person to the left of me is Town Clerk Rebecca Harris. Person to the right of me is Town Council Joe Fair. Sitting to your far left is, we have Kristen, our Select Board Chair, and our Town Administrator Michael Johns. Sitting at that table is the Select Board, so Chair and members, introduce yourself, please.
Sorry. Hi, I'm Kristen Hilleberg. I'm the current chair of the Select Board. Thanks for being here tonight.
Mike Johns, Town Administrator.
Bob Stemple, Clerk of the Select Board.
Wes Folks, just a member.
Priya Sundaram, member.
Sam Anderson, member.
All right, sitting at the table to your right is the Finance Committee. Chair and members, please introduce yourself. It should be on.
Hello? Yeah. I'm Tony Newton. I'm chair of the FinCom.
John Connor, vice chair of FinCom. Maria Nealand.
John Grevin.
Joe Stelpin.
Down in front, Administrative Assistant Kelly Price and Town Planner Alec Wade are running the projector so we can all see the motions and presentations. Also down front, we have Town Finance Director Hung-Hwa Lee to assist us with any financial facts of the matter. Please be aware that Assistant Town Administrator Rajon Hudson is not with us tonight. He is with his family in Alabama as his mother is receiving end-of-life care. Our thoughts and prayers go out to Rajon and his family. Also in the front row of chairs, we have the school committee. Over again to my right, your left, School Superintendent Peter Light also, and down in front and center we have the Planning Board. And we also have a number of town department heads and staff, our chiefs of police and fire, as well as some members of volunteer boards and committees on hand to speak to some of the motions as needed here tonight. The meeting is being broadcast live and being recorded for on-demand viewing later on by BXB-TV, on BXB-TV by Littleton Community Television. We owe some thanks to LCTV's Executive Director Mark Rory and their video program coordinators Judy Reed and Nick Casaletto and the rest of the Boxborough Media production team there. And on behalf of the town, I also want to extend thanks to Blanchard School's Principal Mike Voto for being our gracious host, and Blanchard School's Dan Rawls and his staff, and Ed Kukla and our DPW staff for preparing the gym for tonight's meeting. A few basic announcements as usual here. Non-voters over the age 18 need to sit in the back area there with that area marked off as such. Refreshments in the back are being provided by the Boxborough Conservation Trust. Town meeting will be tonight, and if you approve a proposed procedural motion that you'll hear just a bit later, we'll continue if needed to tomorrow night, Wednesday the 20th, and Thursday the 21st if needed. Another reminder of Boxborough's election coming up on Tuesday, June 2nd, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. at Town Hall. There are contested races for seats on Select Board, Planning Board, and School Committee, along with unopposed candidates seeking re-election to the Board of Health, Library Trustees, and Town Moderator positions. Please consider the candidates and vote next week. So our process here tonight. The agenda for this meeting is the warrant. Everything we discuss at this meeting is contained in that warrant.
Dennis, you want mine? Oh, maybe Tony. Here, do you want to just give him mine? Dennis, you can have ours.
Okay, they gotta share.
See, it wasn't just me. See?
Hold on, Dennis, wait.
Yes, ma'am. Hello, Dennis.
All right, that's the FinCom mic. That's that mic. All right. We'll work out some technical difficulties here. We'll roll with it. As a reminder, we discussed the warrant. It's not a public hearing or forum for random matters of interest, and we won't be discussing anything that's not already identified in the warrant. So that warrant includes summaries and recommendations on each article. On your chairs, you should have found a handout with a QR code to a citizen survey and the revised language for the motion on Article 7 tonight. In addition to the warrant and the handout, material on the table in the back of the room includes a postcard to a QR code with the detailed fiscal year 27 school budget book and the 2025 town report. There's also a nomination form for Golden Fife Award and a guide to town meeting and many other handouts with information of interest to voters and citizens in general. My job as moderator is to be the presiding officer of this legislature and to make sure that town meeting is fair. We have a set of rules and everyone follows them. It's open. Everyone who wishes to speak has an opportunity to do so. It's civil. Everyone listens respectfully, and one part of being civil is that there's no cheering or booing or other outbursts during discussion of articles. And most important, relevant. All the motions, discussions, and amendments must be within the scope of the article and the motion on the floor. We typically refer to this as within the four corners of the article or motion, consistent with the requirement that voters must be notified in advance of items to be discussed here tonight by way of the warrant. And also be aware that we will vote on motions which might be slightly different from the wording of the articles printed in the warrant. And those motions will be displayed on the screen. Starting on page 97 of the warrant, you'll find the town meeting guide with helpful information and some of the most common motions listed there for your information. And you were also given a one-page handout on Boxborough town meeting process as you walked in. So a couple of key points. To be recognized to speak, you need to be in line at one of the two microphones on the floor. Speakers must state your name and address for the record and are limited to 3 minutes. And we run a clock up here on the screen for all to see. All discussions, again, must be relevant to the motions on the floor. When I don't see anybody else standing at a microphone, I'll call for a vote. If someone wants to end debate before that, they need to come to a microphone and say, I move the question, and we will vote on stopping debate at that point in time. Sponsors of the article cannot move the question, and you cannot make comments at the mic and then immediately move the question. When it comes time to vote, I'll either call for a simple vote by voice saying yay or nay, or most commonly I will call for the show of hands using the green cards that you have. And if necessary, if something's too close to call for a show of cards, we'll do a standing count. And yet all of you should have received, all voters who checked in should have a green card, which identifies you as a voter and allows me to see you voting yay or nay. Anything other than a voice vote, you'll need to have that card to be counted. So I will ask for, most commonly, to have you show those cards to make it easier. If we go to the standing count, I'll ask you to show that card again to be counted. Under the town bylaw, I have the ability to declare a majority or a 2/3 vote using voice vote or show of hands. If I do so, and 7 of you think I was in error, please so immediately, and we will go to a standing count instead. And of course, if there's any question about process along the way, at any time, you can just stand in place and say in a loud voice for me or others around you to hear, point of order, and you can direct your question to me. And except for a point of order, you must be at a microphone to ask a question, make a comment, or make a motion to move the question. We will have the 2 microphones tonight, and I'll just be recognizing people in an alternating fashion. I'll just refer to these to my right or your left to my right, and I'll try to keep that straight all night. In the past, we've had yes and no's, but tonight we're just going to go with open mics. Use whichever mic is most convenient for you. And we do have the chairs along the aisle, directly lined up behind the microphones. Those lighter brown versus blue colors there that are marked reserved. Those are for folks lining up to speak and giving them a place to rest while they do so. And please remember, just keep the discussion civil and disagree without being disagreeable. Boxborough has a long tradition of civility at town meeting. Let's continue that here tonight. I also want to draw your attention to the consent agendas. This is an effort to streamline the process here. These are articles that have been already discussed at previous public meetings and have unanimous recommendation of both the Select Board and Finance Committee. And the consent process allows for those motions under these articles to be acted on as one unit and to be passed without debate. This year, there'll be 5 separate consent agendas as listed on page 8 of your warrant, and I'll explain that detailed process for acting on the consent agendas when we get to the first one. So before we get started with the motions on the articles in the warrant, we need to establish some specific rules for this town meeting by way of some procedural motions. So select Board Chair Kristen Hilberg. Do I have a motion?
I move that any adjourned sessions of the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting be held on Wednesday, May 20th and Thursday, May 21st, 2026 in the Blanchard Memorial School Gymnasium starting at 7 p.m. and further that no debate will begin on any new article after 10:30 p.m.
Moved and seconded. Seeing no one at a microphone. All in favor, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. Ms. Hilberg.
I move that once final action has been taken on an article and the next order of business has been taken up, or the session of the annual town meeting has been adjourned, the article may not again be considered at that annual town meeting unless the moderator determines in his discretion that reconsideration would be in the best interest of the voters.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Seeing no one at the microphone. All in favor, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. Okay, moving along. Article 1 is the election, which will be voted on June 2nd, 2026, so no further action on Article 1 here tonight. Motion under Article 2.
Receive the reports. I move that the town vote to receive the reports of the Select Board and other town officers, agents, committees, commissions, and boards, including those published in the 2025 Annual Town Report.
There's a moved and seconded. Discussion recommendation from the Select Board.
This unanimously recommends listening to the reports.
Discussion recommendation from the FinCom. Let's try that again, Tony, for people to hear.
Unanimously.
We can't win for losing.
The FinCom unanimously recommend.
All right, if I heard that correctly, they unanimously recommend. Seeing no one at the microphone, all in favor of receiving the reports, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. So these are general state of the town reports. This year we'll have 3 reports. We'll hear from the Acton-Boxborough Regional School Committee and the Planning Board now. The Finance Committee will be delivering their general report under Article 5. We are receiving the reports. We're not accepting, we're not approving, and there'll be no questions or debate on the reports. So without further ado, I'll welcome Acton-Boxborough Regional School Committee member, or what's your formal title? Adam, you can, Vice Chair Adam Klein to the podium for the school committee report. Thank you.
Thank you. My mic works with no problem. Just want to point that out. Yeah. All right. Good evening. I'm Adam Klein, Boxborough Vice Chairperson of this year's school committee, and I'm honored to present the school district report and fiscal 27 budget. This is your 2025-2026 school committee. We're grateful to Lakshmi, Vikram, Leela, and Yanshin for their service as they retire this year, and eagerly await welcoming our newly elected members from Boxborough. In the past, we've begun by highlighting the many great things happening in our schools, and those continue. Tonight, we're taking a different approach. We're at a pivotal moment for our schools, and we want you to understand why, what we're doing about it, and what it means for the future, and how you can help. Supporting and educating our children is one of the most important responsibilities we share as a community. The Commonwealth classifies Acton and Boxborough as wealthy towns, so we carry an increasing share of funding education through local taxes. Because our enrollment has dropped by about 600 students since 2015, what limited state aid we receive, which is about $20 million, or 1/6 of next year's budget, increases by less than inflation each year. You might think that fewer students means lower costs, but annually, a loss of a few students per grade means it takes years before reducing classrooms or shuttering a building is feasible. While that small increase in state aid supports offsetting the costs of continuing operations, it's not enough to keep up. I want to take a moment to walk you through how we get to where we are today. Every fall, we begin building the budget, asking what would it take to continue to operate today's schools in the same way next year. and what else we might need for tomorrow's students. We then look at how these costs compare to expected revenues. This process helps us spot gaps and decide what to change to make ends meet and whether we need to ask for help. Since 2022, it has cost more each year to maintain the same programs and staffing, but funding has not kept pace. And since 24, we've seen double-digit increases in health insurance, rising utilities, inflation outpacing revenue, and higher mandated costs. These are pressures our towns and families are feeling too. To close the gap in our schools from 22 to 24, we made cuts: administration, staff, and finally teaching positions. Class sizes at the junior high and high school are above state and peer averages and pushing the limits of school committee guidelines. We also reduced spending on curriculum, maintenance, and even basic supplies. Last year, we took a first look at our elementary schools. We started by looking internally. What could we do across our 6 elementary schools to reduce costs and use staff more efficiently, while still providing our students with what they need to succeed? As a result, we reduced classroom assistants and began sharing some specialized staff across schools. But there were some structural obstacles, and it wasn't enough to make up for continuing budget pressures. Even after all that, we still faced a $3 million shortfall for this year. With no reliable new funding, we had to consider larger structural changes to sustain the quality of an AB education. We also knew enrollment had finally declined to a point where students could fit into 3 buildings instead of 4, although it will be tight in the first few years. This led us to consider something we haven't done in over 50 years: completely rethink how we educate students, including closing a school. While our financial situation made this necessary, we did not approach this work as just a budget exercise. As we shared at last year's town meeting, our goals were maintaining the high quality of an AB education, affordability, and sustainability. We said everything is on the table, and we meant it, from the number of schools to grade configurations to how we best support student learning. This work was part of our 5-year strategic planning process. For this year, we brought together educators, families, administrators, school committee, and community members as part of the AB Forward Steering Committee. With the help of experts in this field and your input, we developed a draft strategic plan as a first step. That plan defines what makes our schools strong and provides the overarching path for the next 5 years in terms of what excellence looks like and how we will measure success. It also guided the development of 13 possible options for how to organize our elementary schools. We knew this would be difficult. In many communities, school boards develop these proposals first and then ask for feedback. We chose a different approach. We engaged our community throughout the process, sharing information as it became available and asking for input along the way, because we know how much our community values education and that our plan would be stronger with your contributions. And you all showed up. Since last June, we've received more than 6,000 survey responses, nearly 1,000 emails and comments, over 20 hours of public questions and comments. While there was no single viewpoint, these diverse perspectives were wrapped into both the school committee's structural decision and the administration's implementation plan. As a result, we are moving from 6 smaller K-6 schools to a more consolidated model, with lower and upper schools at Parker Damon and Boardwalk. Blanchard remains K-6. We will close the Conant building. This avoids $40 to $80 million in future renovation costs and reduces staffing by 1 administrative team and 10 teaching positions. It will mean fuller buildings and class sizes at or slightly above guidelines, but also puts us on a sustainable path, saving nearly $17 million over 10 years. This change is not just about finances, it's about maintaining educational quality. Our current model creates barriers, separate locations, schedules, and leadership that limit flexibility. The new structure brings more students in the same grade together under a unified structure, which provides educators more flexibility to respond to students' needs. It also helps us respond to a major shift in our student population that influences the classroom experience. Since 2015, the share of students with high needs has grown from 23% to 33%, now 1 in every 3 students. This includes students with disabilities, English language learners, and students from low-income households. Because these students often require specialized instruction, mental health support, and legally mandated services, we cannot simply reduce staff in proportion to our declining enrollment. In fact, even as the number of students has gone down, we've had to add 66 specialized support positions to ensure all students have safe and effective learning environment. Additionally, we've heard concerns about how everyone in the classroom faces challenges when we have an uneven distribution of students with high needs across our schools. This creates imbalances in teaching loads and in access to support, affecting all students, not just those with high needs. It became clear that simply closing one school and redistributing a small number of students would not fix this problem. We heard, just as important as the structure, is how we bring people together within it. We needed an approach that would allow students and educators from all 6 current schools to come together, share best practices, and build strong new communities. As a result, the committee chose to move to a geographic enrollment system, which will allow us to create more balanced school communities and better support all students across the district. This is a major transition, and we recognize the impact on families and educators. It will be disruptive, and we are grateful for the partnership we've seen across the community in coming together to support this transition. This year's budget reflects these changes. With these decisions, we continue on a responsible path of proposing an overall school budget within the resources of our community. Our operating and capital budget for financial year 27 is $122.6 million, which represents a 4.75% increase. About 1% of this increase comes from one-time funding to support the transition and reinvest some savings into student support services, including counselors to help students through the changes ahead. While in the past we've had to cut our budget to meet the resources of the community, this gets harder every year. And this year in particular has required tremendously difficult decisions with material consequences. As we look ahead, we are asking a critical question. When does the gap between costs and revenue become too large to manage without affecting the classroom? We have reached the limits of what we can do inside the district. We've made cuts, adjustments, and structural changes. Class sizes are at their limits. There is no longer meaningful flexibility left without compromising educational quality. If the current trend continues, double-digit health insurance increases, inflation above 3%, and constrained state funding, we will need additional support to maintain the quality of education. This is a community-wide challenge, and we expect you will hear the same from our town leadership in their reports. No one wants higher taxes, but strong schools and the services that support our town require a sustained investment. So, what can you do? Stay engaged. Advocate for fair state funding, and thank you to those who have sent emails to the Senate Ways and Means Committee already. Show up to support our school communities. And when decisions come before town meeting or the ballot, understand what's at stake. The strength of our schools, our community, depends on the choices we make together. Thank you for your continued support of our school district.
Okay, thank you, Adam. Next up, we have the report of the Planning Board. Planning Board Chair Rebecca Werner.
All right, good evening. 2025 was an active and productive year for the Planning Board, with significant efforts focused on updating local regulations, advancing long-term planning initiatives, and reviewing projects that will shape the future of Boxborough for decades to come. The Planning Board proposed a total of 9 zoning and bylaw articles across the annual and fall town meetings, 8 of which were approved by the required 2/3 or majority votes. This level of support reflected the extensive public processes, coordination, and careful review that went into each proposal. These included updates to the housing bylaws, public safety use, and protections of the scenic and natural environment. At the May 2025 annual town meeting, the board advanced 5 zoning amendments focused on regulatory updates and compliance. These included updating the floodplain overlay district to maintain the town's eligibility for federal flood insurance and disaster assistance, clarifying special permit review procedures, and amending the town's accessory dwelling unit regulations to comply with the state Affordable Homes Act. The board also restored a prohibition on hazardous waste facilities that had been inadvertently removed during the 2022 recodification process, and completed a series of non-substantive housekeeping corrections to improve the clarity and organization of the zoning bylaw. While some of these amendments were technical in nature, each played an important role in ensuring that the town's regulation remained clear, enforceable, and aligned with changing state and federal requirements. At the October 2025 Fall Town Meeting, the board proposed 4 additional articles. These included zoning amendments to support future public safety facilities and expand siting options for a new fire station, as well as revisions to the stone walls bylaw. Most significantly, town meeting approved the establishment of the MBTA communities multifamily overlay district, bringing Boxborough into compliance with Section 3A of the Zoning Act and preserving, preserving the town's eligibility for important state grant and funding programs. This effort reflected more than a year of planning, public outreach, interboard coordination, and community discussion regarding how Boxborough can comply with state law while maintaining the character of the community. You're smiling in my, okay. In addition to legislative work, the planning board reviewed several major development applications during the year, including industrial and contractor storage facilities, subdivision bond releases, and amendments related to the park at Beaver Brook development proposal. Following extensive public reviews and hearings, the planning board ultimately approved amendments to the park at Beaver Brook, which will result in the permanent protection of an additional 94 acres of conservation land and provide opportunities for new commercial growth in Boxborough over the next 17 and a half years. The project represents one of the most significant long-term economic development and land preservation initiatives considered by the town in recent years, and reflects the board's continued effort to balance economic growth and the preservation of Boxborough's natural resources and rural character. For additional details on any article or applications, residents are encouraged to review the warrant and proceedings section of the town report. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right, as a reminder to myself and everyone else here, the Finance Committee will be delivering their general report under Article 5. Motion under Article 3.
For some reason, we think the batteries keep dying on us. I apologize.
Thank you. Okay.
I have to keep track of where they are.
It's that. I move that the town vote to fix the salaries and compensation of the various elected officials for the fiscal year beginning July 1st, 2026 as follows. The town clerk, $89,078. Constables, $7 per copy / warrants posted.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Recommendation from the Select Board, Mr. Stemple.
The Select Board recommends 5-0-0. The Select Board unanimously recommends these compensation rates for the elected officials. The town clerk's salary as an increase, which is the same as the percentage of the town's non-union personnel.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee recommends unanimously.
Seeing no one at a microphone. All in favor, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. Okay, on to Article 4. Please be aware that the motion on Article 4 involves two separate items.
Do you want this one back?
To make it easier to explain, discuss, and to vote on the motion, there will be two separate motions, discussions, and votes, with one discussion and vote per item in the warrant. Do we have a motion under Article 4, Vote 1?
Hi, everybody. Alan McLean. I'm the chair of the Personnel Board. So there are two votes for this. So as to vote 1, I move that the town amend certain administrative sections of the Personnel Administrative Plan in the manner that is set forth in the document on file with the town clerk titled Administrative Changes to Personnel Administration Plan, and also available on the town's website as set forth in the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting warrant.
Do I hear a second? Moved and seconded. Recommendation and discussion from the Personnel Board, please.
Personnel Board voted unanimously 4-0 in support of this vote.
Okay, recommendation from the Finance Committee. That's a unanimous recommendation if you didn't hear it. Recommendation from the Select Board.
The Select Board recommends 401. The reason for the abstention is one of our members is also a town employee, so he recused himself from the votes on this warrant article.
Seeing no one at a microphone, all in favor, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. Motion under Article 4, Vote 2.
Vote 2. I move that the town amend the classification and compensation schedule of the Personnel Administration Plan in the manner that is set forth in the document on file with the town clerk titled Proposed Changes to Personnel Administration Plan, and also available on the town's website, as set forth in the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting warrant, which schedule includes a 3.0% wage adjustment as stated in the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting warrant.
Moved and seconded. Recommendation and any discussion from the Personnel Board, please.
Personnel Board also voted to recommend this unanimously 4-0.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee recommends unanimously.
And recommendation from the Select Board.
Is it working? There it is. Okay. Again, the Select Board recommends 4 in favor, 0 no, 1 recused themselves because they are a town employee.
Seeing no one at a microphone, all in favor, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. Okay, on to Article 5. This is the budget, and as the operating budget of the town, Article 5 is one of the most important articles we consider each town meeting. Please turn to page 19 of the warrant, and we will be following our usual practices of considering the budget line by line. But before we start that process, Finance Committee will make a motion. They'll then present the report and recommendation, and the Select Board will make their recommendation, and then we'll have the discussion from the floor as we go through line by line. So, motion by the Finance Committee. Tony.
I move that the town vote to raise and appropriate the sum of $31,144,981 for the operations and expenses of providing public services for the fiscal year 2027, beginning July the 1st, 2026, for the purposes and in the amounts set forth in the FY27 budget salary and non-salary columns for department account numbers 114 through 920, and any subheadings included under said account numbers, as displayed in the motion for Article 5 of the May 19, 2026 Annual Town Meeting.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Okay, report and recommendation from the Finance Committee. And you can also follow along in the back of the warrant. There's a lot of the information that you're about to see.
So I'm going to talk about the Article 5, the operating budget, but actually this will also include some discussion of other elements of the overall budget, because these actually impact what the operating budget needs to look like this year. The challenge this year was that we were approaching and getting very close to the levy limit, and I'll explain a bit later what that really means for the town. We developed a budget strategy to actually look at ways we could avoid having an override, if possible. Just to cut to the dramatic end to this, we actually managed to avoid an override this year, although the future still looks like we will have something in the future potentially for an override, as well as other future challenges. So just to discuss what's in the budget structure that we're talking about here, the top two lines here of the operating budget are the two major elements of the operating budget. We have the town expenses, all of the ongoing expenses, which have to be funded by what we call raise and appropriate, or tax, and also the Acton Boxborough Regional School District assessment, which is now more than half of our total operating budget, also has to be paid for by taxation. But there are other items that affect the budget. The warrant articles, which you will be voting on separately tonight, many of those can be funded by free cash or by bonding. Some of those articles have to be paid for by tax. This year we have actually avoided any of those warrant articles being funded by taxation. So that has helped us in our whole overall budgeting process. There are also CPC items, community preservation items, that are separately funded through the CPA funds. So firstly, some definitions so we understand what the parameters are of what we're talking about here. The levy is the property tax, basically, so that's also called raise and appropriate in these presentations. The levy limit is something that is set, was set many, many years ago, and it only increases by 2.5% each year based on state law. We can also add some amount to that for new growth in the town. Within Boxborough, we've had very little new growth, so those numbers have been quite low each year. There's also included in this calculation excluded debt. So this is debt that's taken on to pay for large capital items, and we can make an allowance for that in our levy limit. So when we add together the levy limit and the excluded debt, we get our maximum allowable levy, and we're not allowed to go beyond that with taxation for the town. So that's the number we have to understand, and we have to work within when we're setting our operating budget and our overall budget. If we get to the point where we cannot avoid being at that maximum allowable levy, we will need to do an operational override, and that's what we were trying to avoid this year. And we've succeeded in doing that, but this may be a future consideration. Many towns in Massachusetts are facing this challenge now of operational overrides. So the calculation for us was we looked at the previous year's levy limit of 28.1 million. We were allowed to add 704,000 for our 2.5%. We estimated new growth at 150,000. That may be incorrect. This is an estimate based on our understanding right now of how new growth is going in the town. That gives us our levy limits. We have excluded debt we're carrying for, some of that is for the fire station land purchase, and some of that is for the Douglas Gate School, where we get an allowance for the debt we paid for the school. So the number to bear in mind is 29.9 million. That's the amount we cannot go over with our taxation. And if you look at that in graphical terms, what we see is that over the last 5 years, the levy has actually grown on average 5.8% a year. The maximum levy level has grown, and it was grown by 4% a year. So those two lines are getting closer and closer, which is not a good picture going into the budget cycle. So the way we approached the budget process was we developed two budgets, an A budget and a B budget. The A budget was what we decided would be a level services budget. So basically no increased positions, no salary adjustments except for contracted and collective bargaining agreement adjustments, minimal use of no use of R&A for warrant articles, and with a target of 5.5%. We also developed a B budget that would have, and our assumption was the A budget would have been an override budget, essentially. We then developed a B budget alongside that, which was a level funded budget. Level funded for us, we thought was 2%, because there are certain costs that we cannot avoid each year, like health insurance, pensions, insurances that go up anyway. We can't avoid those increases. That budget would have meant staff reductions to actually allow us to be essentially level funded as a town. So this is what we got to when we looked at the A budget picture with all of the other elements to it. So we managed to get a town part of the operating budget at a 5.6% growth level. The Acton Boxford School District worked very closely to get us to a 5.4% growth. So our overall growth was 5.5%, so right on the target that we had set at the outset of the budgeting cycle. In the warrant articles, we funded through free cash and a small amount of bonding, and we added nothing to R&A, to taxation. So that gave us a total outgoing of $33.9 million. So what that means is, in terms of the town budget, is that we no new positions, no new programs, but no cuts to services with that A budget. For the school, it meant it was actually less than the level services budget. They actually had to cut some positions. Net, they lost 4.5 positions from the school district. And as Adam said, they closed the Conant School, so there's some savings were made there. So although their budget grew by 4.6%, our assessment, of course, grows more because we have an increasing enrollment from Boxborough compared to Acton, so we take a bigger share of the growth of that budget. For warrant articles, we had no taxation for those. And another change we were able to make was for the overlay reserve fund, which is a fund that the assessor takes for potential abatements. We had discussed with the assessor whether the amount in that reserve right now is sufficient for the town, and he decided to not take any overlay reserve funding. So that saved us probably $300,000 on our overall budget. So when we looked at the A budget, actually, and did the calculation, we had to achieve this $33.9 million. We looked at other sources of funding that we have. So we have state aid, which is quite flat, but is part of our calculation. We have local receipts, which is local excise tax and meals taxes and stuff like that. We use free cash. We use bonding, and we ended up with, when we looked at what the levy needed to be, when we calculated back from our 33.9 million, the levy is 28.9 million. So we're actually just within the maximum allowable levy for the town with the changes that we made. So that was a good outcome actually for this budget cycle. So the B budget we did not need to pursue, so no staff decreases or anything like that. So that's definitely good news for the town. And for this year, we're within the maximum allowable levy. And this is how the graph looks now. We're actually running parallel, essentially, with the maximum allowable levy. So for right now, we're in the clear. Future is less certain. Here's how it all rolls up. We have, on one side, we have the expenditures, which is the operating budget, the town and the school district. We have our debt servicing costs, our warrant articles, and then on the other side, the income that we have. And that calculates out the levy, $28.9 million, which is less than the maximum allowable levy. So how that looks for the year in terms of the operating budget, we grow at 5.5%. What does that do to the tax rate? Well, the tax rate, I would stress here, these are estimates at this point. The tax rate will be finally worked out by the assessor at the end of the year when all the information is actually more solid, and it's based on our estimate of what the town value is going to be, our estimate of what the average home value is going to be, but we think the levy will be increasing by about 3.2%, so less than previous years, actually. Another thing to think about for the town, especially in years to come, will be debt. We have existing debt of $11.4 million, a debt servicing cost over $1 million. We have new debt from these warrant articles in the warrant this meeting, which will add up some more to that. But coming up next year, of course, we'll have the fire station construction, probably about $30 million. So that's going to add a significant debt servicing burden to the future budget. So that's something to bear in mind for future years. So future challenges for the town, potential operational override for fiscal year 28. Education is obviously a large increase in cost for the town, and always will be a challenge for us. But important that we try and fund that. Debt servicing will be a challenge for us. As always, pensions, benefits, insurances are an ongoing increasing more than the cost of inflation. We have increased debt from the fire station construction and potential additional capital costs at the school districts as well that we're aware of. So in conclusion, the challenge in FY27 was working within the levy limits. Our budget strategy was to develop very clear guidance and use free cash for warrant articles, avoiding taxation. Our final budget is close to, but within the levy limits. There are future issues with the potential operational override and increasing debt. These are the members of the Finance Committee. In conclusion, I would recommend this budget to the town meeting.
All right, thank you, Tony. Recommendation from the Select Board, please.
The Select Board unanimously recommends, and we thank the Finance Committee for the time, effort, and experience put into both bringing the budget forward and the report that you just presented. Definitely helps us understand our current financial position.
Okay, thank you. So please refer to page 20 in the warrant. We're going to start the discussion from the floor on a line-by-line basis. So I'm going to read the number and the name of each line item. If no one comes to the microphone or calls out a hold, we will continue to the next item. If someone calls for a hold, we will stop and discuss that specific item before moving on to the next item. And once we've reached the end, I'll call for a vote on the entire budget, along with including any amendments that might come up along the way. So, top of page 20, line item 114, Town Moderator. Line 119, Town Constable. Line 122, Selectmen. Hold.
Yep.
Name and address, please.
Yep. Becky Neville, 317 Middle Road. I have a question because first of all, I want to say I think this budget's terrible because there's like no history. You don't have an actual for any year. There's no percentage of increase, so you actually have to sit there and figure it out. And in the past, when there was a discrepancy, there would be notes attached to the budget. You couldn't look at it online. In past years, we've put the Excel spreadsheet online and stuff, and ClearGov is a nightmare. So I'm just starting with that. But I would like to know what I've never seen 122 before. Like, that's a new line item for us. We've always gone from 119 to 123. So I'd like to know what the $10,000 for the Select Board is. Are they throwing parties?
Tony, yeah, if you can answer or defer to the Select Board since this is our line item. Or the town administrator, whoever's best qualified.
We're going to let the town administrator take this one.
All right.
So the finance director's looking it up. Give me 1 second.
Well, I can comment on that, Dennis. So
yeah, Tony, you can
this line was added this year because it's to cover the cost of special town meetings. And the feeling was between the select board and the finance committee was that we wanted to actually carve that as a separate line item so we could see how much it was costing us to do town meetings.
Okay, well, I think in the past, Tony, like if we've had something for $10,000 in the budget, it's been a warrant article, right? I mean, usually it's been a separate warrant article, but that's just, I mean, you know.
I'm told not, typically.
Oh, okay, well, did this money come out of the town administrators and the town clerk's budget who usually pay for this town meetings?
Well, I'll defer to Mike about that, but that was our understanding, that we would carve the money out from other town government budgets to actually fund this this particular line.
There it is. Okay, so Becky, the reason this is here is so that we do have the option next year of going over to the Regency. We all feel how hot and miserable it is in here right now. If we do have an override and significant budget changes, cuts, et cetera, next year, we'd like to be able to go into the Regency, have more space, have air conditioning, be able to actually all be in one room together. So we put it into the budget to be completely transparent because we took, we moved town meeting back here this year because we hadn't gotten permission beforehand.
Yeah, I'm not looking for a back and forth, but I would say this isn't transparent because nowhere in the warrant does it say this. That's what this is for.
Okay, comment is duly noted. Moving on, line item 123, town administrator. Hold on item 123. Name and address, please.
Brad Hampson, 49 Wheeler Drive. I'd just like to know what's included in the some $475,000 line item.
All right, whoever has the information close at hand, it looks like the town administrator could answer.
Sure. Included in there is the salary for the administration staff, as well as some contractual obligations for training, professional development, travel, and the overall administration of the town.
Okay, would that typically be broken out in a document like this, or just carried as a single line item?
Yeah, it's typically broken out just as salary and expenses, but just the single line.
Okay, thank you.
I've been alerted that if you go to the next page in the warrant, you can see a little more detail with the breakdown between salary and expenses for a total. Seeing no one else at the microphone, do you want to speak to item 123?
Yes, before we leave that. Sorry.
Name and address, please.
Cindy Markowitz, Meadow Lane. Could you break out the salary items for how many folks that is and what the salaries are per administrator?
Yes, that is for 3 staff members. So that's for myself, my assistant, and the administrative assistant. And would you want the amounts for the 3?
Yeah, yes, please.
So I believe it's about $219,000 for the town administrator, just around $100,000, a little over for the assistant, and around close to $70,000.
I'm sorry, what was the third position?
For the administrative assistant.
Great, thank you.
Line item 131, the Finance Committee. Line item 132, Reserve Fund. Line item 135, Accountant. Line item 141, Assessors. Line item 145, Treasurer. Hold on 145. Name and address, please.
Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. I'm actually going to Ms. Neville's previous point. I am going to ask for a hold on any budget item that is either to the right or the left of 10%, just to forewarn the Finance Committee. But since I'm up on 145, can you please explain the 13.7 budget increase for this particular line item?
Yes, I can. That's so we hired a new treasurer this year, and the contract for that was more expensive than the last treasurer.
And going forward, is this going to be the level that the treasurer's salary is going to be at, or can we anticipate an additional significant bump next year?
There is an increase each year, but it's not a significant one. It's in line with other staff.
Moving along, line item 151, Legal Department. Line item 152, Personnel. Line item 155, Information Technology. Cheryl, name and address again for the record.
Yep, Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. Again, to the Finance Committee, Mr. Moderator, there is a decrease to the salary of 29.6%. Could I get some more information on that?
Mike?
That's on
Information Tech.
Yeah. That's basically because we changed over IT providers, and there was a significant savings when we did that from the last managed IT provider.
Thank you.
Okay, line item 161, Clerk. Another hold. We know it's you, Cheryl.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
But just for the record, Becky, Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. I believe this was probably the absorption of the stipend and the salary. I mean, could you explain the 13% increase?
Yes, it's not the stipend because that's a separate line item, I believe, but the main increase over last year is because of the number of elections. So in the fall, we have a state primary, and then we have the federal and state election in November, and we didn't have that last year. So it's election worker salaries, and the main thing is election equipment servicing. For each election, we have 2 types of equipment we have to service. So it's just a cost that's baked into any election, as well as the printing of the ballots and all that. So elections are the main driver.
Thank you.
Okay, line item 171, Conservation Committee, should be Commission. 174, Town Planner. 175, Planning Board.
Mr. Moderator, Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. Through you to the Finance Committee or possibly the Planning Board, the 28% decrease.
Rebecca's going to take that one. Yep.
Thanks, Cheryl. This was a good faith effort made by the Planning Board to, in the face of a large budgetary increase that we knew was coming, we just lowered our fees request for this.
Line item 176, Zoning Board. 179, Agricultural Commission. 182, Economic Development. 192, Building and Maintenance. 196, Facilities. 199, Sustainability Committee. 210, Police. 215, Dispatch. Oh, we're backing up. 210, Police. I need a microphone here.
Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. I don't have, it doesn't fall into my previous qualification. My question is if Finance Committee can explain the split vote on this particular budget.
Got a working mic, Tony?
1, 2, 3. Yeah, okay. Okay, so just on process, the FinCom did vote for the overall budget unanimously. You'll see 3-3 votes on the police and DPW lines. So just to preempt your next hold. And the reason for this was that members of the FinCom were uncomfortable with the $20,000 pay raises awarded to the DPW chief and the police chief. We felt this was too much this year, especially given the budget issues we were facing. You know, we issued budget guidance that said no big pay increases, no new positions, and this was really a counter to that sentiment that was actually agreed with Select Board and Town Management. These decisions were taken by Town Management and the Select Board without any FinCom input. So while we recognise we have no say in that, and it's too late now, they're contracted, we can't do anything about it. It's really a sort of a protest vote, I suppose, in terms of we were just not happy with those decisions being made this year in this town.
And then a follow-up question, Mr. Moderator, if I'm allowed. Can someone explain, I know the budget on salaries are down, but I've heard that there's been some significant changes in the desired staffing structure at the police station. Could someone explain the recent changes to the staffing structure and how it could potentially impact the salary line going forward? Specifically, the supervisors?
Flirting with the four corners here. This is the budget question and related
Right.
to staffing.
Well, it's a salary line,
okay.
and I'm asking, is the changes in the supervisory structure going to impact us in future years? Because we're approving the new supervisory structure tonight by approving the salaries.
I'm not sure if that's true or not, but Chris.
I mean, I think the answer is no, but I think the chief can probably answer that question better than we can.
Hi, thank you. John Chevchik, Chief of Police, Town of Boxborough. I can sum that up really quickly. We did go from a structure of one chief, one lieutenant, 3 sergeants, and 8 officers to a second lieutenant, 1 less officer. So now we have 1 chief, 2 lieutenants, 3 sergeants, 7 officers. We still have a budgeted department of 13 individuals. What this allowed, however, was us to put a lieutenant during the day and a lieutenant on evening. And what I've done is I've, for better lack of word, backfilled with the lieutenant. This allows for a substantial savings in overtime. So we were able to decrease the overtime budget by $19,000. The increase in pay was minimal, only a few $1,000s, but the decrease in overtime was $19,000. So it was a way to get more supervisors, have a supervisor here in the evening, and still save the taxpayers close to $20,000.
And the lieutenant's outside of the CBU, correct?
Excuse me?
The lieutenant is outside of the CBU, or is he within the CBU?
Bargaining unit?
Yes, both lieutenants are outside of the collective bargaining agreement, and they are go by the personnel plan.
Okay. That answered the question specific to this budget, not a future budget, I believe.
Can I go? Becky Neville,
Yeah, please.
317 Middle Road. My question is a piggyback on Cheryl's, because I also knew that there was a $20,000 increase for the police chief and for the DPW director. And my biggest concern is, in a year when we had thought there might be an override, and the town administrator had said in a meeting that I was at that one of the cuts would have been to give no COLA, or cost of living increase, to the personnel board employees or the personnel plan employees. I have a problem when we balance the budget, our budget, on the back of our lowest paid employees, and then we give raises like this. I understand the select board might have felt it was necessary, but you know, I've negotiated contracts too. You can spread it over 3 years. If you hadn't given it all up front, it wouldn't have been quite so much.
All right, seeing no one else at a microphone, line item 215, dispatch. Line item 220, fire. Line item 292, animal control. Line item 300, vocational education. Are you holding on 300?
Hold.
Question or comment on 300? Name and address, please.
Griffin Berman, 318 Codman Hill Road. I would like an explanation on the, more than quarter percent cut on vocational education. What vocational education is that covering, and why the decrease?
Tony?
This is a budgeted estimate of what we think the cost will be of vocational education. Kids in Boxborough get a choice to go to certain vocational schools if they can get in, actually. And we know each year we expect how many will be going to certain schools, so we budget for that. This year, the number's gone down. So we're just budgeting for what we expect to be the real number. We're not saying we can't send kids to those schools. We're just saying what we're seeing in the future is that the numbers are going down based on kids graduating out and other kids not coming in.
Okay, so it's more because of the decrease we've seen in enrollment, not so much deprioritizing vocational education.
Yeah, and one of the issues is it's not easy to get into vocational schools, actually. So that actually is a disincentive to people to.
Well, my concern was just that they've been a lot more popular lately, like the dialogue around future education. There's my cousins and my kid are now interested in vocation. They're smart enough for college, but they want to do vocational education because and I agree with them, the benefit to cost ratio is not what it used to be for college.
We're just budgeting for what we expect it to be, basically.
Yeah, so it's mostly based on enrollment. Okay.
Line item 310, regional school. Line item 422, Public Works Maintenance. Line item 423, Public Works Snow and Ice. 424, Public Works Street Lighting. 429, Public Works Fuel. 431, Public Works Hazardous Waste. 433, Public Works Transfer Station.
Hold.
Name and address for the record.
Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. My previous concern, the budget is down 11.6%.
Tony or Mike, explanation?
That was down due to the chipping fees going down year on year. So we're just budgeting for what we expect it to be this year.
All right.
Could I add to that?
Mike, yeah, you can.
Yeah, so it's not actually the fees themselves going down, but the amount of solid waste we're sending. So, but Tony's right, the dollar amount in total has been going down, so we're following that trend.
So does that mean that we're recycling more? Or has DPW identified the source of this savings?
There's a couple of things. Yes, people are recycling more. However, the cost of recycling is actually more expensive than the solid waste disposal. The biggest impact is there are more people getting privatized curbside, so there are less people using the transfer station.
Line item 490, Animal Inspector. Line item 491, Cemetery. Line item 511, Board of Health. Hold on. Board of Health.
Mr. Moderator, same concern. This budget item is 21.9% increase from previous year.
Explanation, someone? Oh, from Alec Wade, our town planner.
Thanks for that question, Cheryl. This year we did face an increased assessment from the Neshoba Regional Boards of Health. They are going through a restructuring and attempting to bring on their next executive director, which does require they come current with those costs. Additionally, we did see an increase to the demands of our transfer station assessing. So the way they go through and they do their testing, their sampling, and then sending that in. The previous method was much cheaper, but we've been told by Mass DEP that is no longer an option. Thank you.
Line item 529, Community Services. I see a hold.
Hold. Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. Same question or concern, Mr. Moderator. There's a 34.9% increase to this budget. Oh, sorry, yes. 34.9.
Please, Mike.
There are two main reasons for that. There were two things in this budget last year that were warrant articles that were voted on, and so this year they're actually in the budget. One is the modified BEEP, which was, I think, about $20,000 that was voted at town meeting as an article. That is now in the budget. The other was a 10-hour increase in the department head who runs that department, which was also an article that was voted separately. So this isn't an increase in your total budget over next year, but it's in the budget instead of separate warrant articles.
So just a couple of quick follow-ups. What is a BEEP?
I'll let the department head answer that.
Mike at the podium. All right. All right, I've heard of hot mics, but we got a lot of cold mics here tonight. Hard to believe.
Hello? Hi. I'm Wendy Trinks, the Community Services Coordinator, and last year you voted $20,000 to do the Modified Boxborough Emergency Assistance Program. It helps families and individuals and seniors by giving them, based on their bank statements, their income. It helps them to maybe stay in Boxborough. It's a short-term fix between $500 and $1,000 that will help pay their rent, their utilities.
And we approved this at last year's.
Yeah, we approved
this. So this is
at-
just continuing on with
Yes.
our goodwill for our community members in need.
Yes, it was an ATM last year, and we knew when we talked about this with the Finance Committee, we knew that it was gonna look like a real big increase, but we put it in the budget.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Moving on to line item 541, Council on Aging. Line 543, Veterans. Hold on that one.
Mr. Moderator, Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. Same concern. There's a 29.9% increase to this budget line.
Go ahead, Mike. Mike on the mic.
So our veteran service officer is shared between Acton and Boxborough. He's doing a terrific job, and he's identifying veterans in need, and this increase is representative of that. There are more veterans out there who qualify and are getting assistance from the town in partnership with the state and their resources.
So again, this is us demonstrating goodwill to our citizens and our service members that have given their time and their commitment to our country and our community.
Yes.
Thank you.
Line item 610, Library. Line item 630, Recreation Commission. Hold on Recreation.
Hold. Just a real quick explanation. We have a 14.5% savings. Could somebody just tell us what the good news is?
Hillary Grevin, I see, is coming to the mic.
Hi, sorry. Hi, Hillary Grevin, Chair of the Recreation Commission. So we have a revolving account where fees for our programs, such as Flara's summer program, goes into. So we moved any expenses for that program to come out of the revolving fund. So money in, money out. So that's the difference there.
Thank you. And Mr. Moderator, all these other budget lines are mandatory funding, so I'm going to go sit down.
Thank you. 691, Historical Commission. 692, Public Celebration. 699, AB Cultural Council. 710, Retirement of Debt. We have a hold.
John Markowitz, 71 Patch Hill Road. First of all, Tony, I'd like to thank you for a great explanation on the levy limit. I thought you did a great job. The question I had is, though, you talked about...
John, can you get a little closer to the mic?
Could you hear anything I said?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
but your
Okay.
the mic's kind of
when I
pointing the
moved
wrong
away,
way.
okay,
Yeah.
fine. So Tony, once again, you did a great job. But you talked about the next year we're going to have an increase in the cost of our servicing of the debt. But yet this year you reduced the amount that we allocated to retirement of debt by $80,000. Can you explain the logic to me? You want to use this mic?
1, 2, 3. Okay. So there's two lines there. There's retirement of debt, and then there's short-term debt.
Right.
So the retirement of debt is all of the bonds we currently have, which are being slowly paid off. So that number actually falls year by year. The new debt we've taken on in the last 2 years has been financed through bands. They're bond anticipatory notes. And we don't turn it into a bond until we have enough debt accumulated to make a bond worthwhile. So what you'll see there is a very large increase in the short-term debt servicing, but a small decrease in the long-term debt servicing.
Okay. Thank you, Tony.
Line item 751, interest on short-term debt. Line item 911, retirement assessment. 912, insurances. 913, insurances unemployment. 914, insurances health. 915, benefits life and LTD. 916, benefits Medicare. 919, benefits flexible spending. And line 920, insurances liability. All right, Tony, can you confirm? I have no notes on any changes, and the motion as made still stands? Correct, okay. We've gone through the entire budget. All in favor, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. Motion under Article 6. Just a note to everybody, this is a motion article by way of citizens petition, and we have Jim Moss as the petitioner here tonight.
I move that the town vote to adopt a new general bylaw entitled Reconsideration of Town Meeting Vote, to be inserted as a new Section 6 within Article 1, Town Meeting, of the general bylaws, immediately following Section 5, vote counts by moderator, and to renumber the existing Section 6 accordingly, to read as follows. Once final action has been taken on an article, and the next order of business has been taken up, or the session of town meeting has been adjourned, the article may not again be considered at that town meeting unless the moderator determines in their discretion that reconsideration would be in the best interest of the voters.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Recommendation from the petitioner, Jim Moss, please.
We've had some heady discussions about lots of budget items and a lot of money, but this particular article isn't going to cost you much of anything. Tonight, like every town meeting since 2015, you, the town meeting members, have just voted yet again to disallow reconsideration at the town meeting. After reading the last 11 years of town, whoa, wait a minute, we have to adjust that for tonight. After reading the last 12 years of town meeting records, I found that the town meeting members have consistently and overwhelmingly passed a procedural vote to disallow reconsideration at the town meeting. This article proposes making this proven voter preference permanent. By doing so, it'll reduce the town meeting time, albeit not by much, but enough. As I said, the other plus, this article isn't going to cost you much of a dime. Thank you.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee recommends unanimously.
Recommendation from the Select Board.
Double thumbs up.
The Select Board recommends unanimously? Okay. Seeing no one at a microphone. All in favor, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. Thank you, Jim. Okay, so before I call for a motion under Article 7, please be aware that the motion will be different from what's printed in the warrant. The motion will refer to the version of the proposed bylaw as provided in that handout with the QR code that you received on your seats. So pay attention to what you see there as well as what you'll see on the screen, which, like I said, is different from what's in the printed warrant. So motion from the Planning Board, please. Rebecca?
Thank you. I move that the town vote to amend the Boxborough general bylaws by inserting a new Article 9, Section 6, plastic bag reduction bylaw as set forth in the handout distributed at the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the general bylaw be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the general bylaw.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Okay, recommendation from the Planning Board. Majority opinion?
Majority was unanimous, 3-0.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends this article. The proposed bylaw reduces long-term environmental and public health impacts.
Okay, recommendation from the Conservation Commission. Oh, we have Liz coming to the mic.
Conservation Commission recommends unanimously for the reasons written in the warrant.
Recommendation from the Sustainability Committee.
The Sustainability Committee recommends unanimously as written in the warrant.
Recommendation from the Economic Development Committee.
There we go. The Economic Development Committee recommends 4-0. The Economic Development Committee would like to thank the members of the Planning Board who listened to our concerns about the plastic reduction bylaw that was originally proposed and printed in the warrant. Our primary concern was the lack of input from local business owners who were going to be impacted by the restrictions. While we recognize that the proliferation and distribution of plastic is a serious problem, we also believe that our local businesses should be included in helping us find a workable solution. The original bylaw language was excerpted directly from the Town of Acton's bylaw, and while it may work in Acton, we are not Acton. Boxborough has far fewer retail businesses. We need a bylaw that works for Boxborough businesses and residents. Banning plastic bags is a good start. We encourage the Planning Board to continue their work in expanding this bylaw with a thoughtful and deliberate process.
Recommendation from the Select Board.
The Select Board unanimously recommended 4-0.
I'm not seeing anyone on a microphone. Yes, I am. Name and address, please.
Becky Nip. I thought you were waiting for another committee or something.
Okay.
I want to begin by saying that I support the goal of reducing single-use plastics. I believe it's an important environmental issue and appreciate the residents and volunteers who care deeply about sustainability in Boxborough. However, I'm concerned about the process and about the body bringing this forward. This proposal is being presented as a general bylaw by the Planning Board, and I question if that falls within the Planning Board's intended role and authority. Traditionally, general bylaws affecting broad town policy and day-to-day business operations have fallen under the purview of the Select Board often with support from appointed committees such as sustainability or economic development. Those groups are specifically tasked with evaluating town-wide policy impacts, implementation concerns, public outreach, and economic consequences. The Planning Board plays a critical and important role in land use, zoning development, and long-range planning, but this proposal is not about zoning or land use. It regulates business practices and consumer products across the community. To me, that represents a significant expansion to the Planning Board's scope. My concern tonight is not necessarily about the intent of the bylaw, but about maintaining clear lines of responsibility and accountability in town government. When boards move beyond their traditional areas of responsibility, even with the good intentions, it can create confusion about governance and precedents for the future. I believe this issue deserves broader discussion and should instead, if appropriate, be brought forward by the Select Board or one of its appointed committees where economic, operational, and community impacts can be fully vetted through the appropriate channels. Thanks.
Microphone to my right, please. Name and address.
Dan Hogan, 1146 Hill Road. I've got similar concerns about this particular article, but in particular the preamble, the justification. I've counted 11 businesses which sell food items in this town, 2 of which are located in office buildings. We have a Dunkin' Donuts up on 111, and yet we're being asked to vote on this because it reduces solid waste and unnecessary strains on our recycling resources. That is hyperbole. And I'd rather not have hyperbole in the warrant articles. There's another one, minimizing litter. To what extent, if we did find these plastic bags littered along the highway, would they have come from these 11 businesses? So I would like actually to object for exactly the reasons the lady prior to me objected to, but also I would like to see a change in the way warrant articles are presented, particularly by the elected boards. It's not appropriate for an elected board to be basically exaggerating when it comes to promoting their point of view. Thank you.
Microphone to my left, please. Name and address.
Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. I'm going to start by showing everybody I have my recyclable bag in my pocket, which I carry everywhere. So I fully support the concept of global waste reduction. However, I have serious concerns that communities run into problems when they pick a one-size-fits-all. We are not Acton, and I've had friends that have been championing these kind of efforts in other communities. They've done years of research, community input, community feedback. So I believe the presentation of this article is preemptive and it's not fully formed. I mean, to Rebecca's point, they're going to continue to work on this. Why can't we have a fully formed, I mean, there is no plastic bag emergency right now. And my question is what was the residential input you received from your public meeting, your public hearing?
If you can answer that, Rebecca, please do.
Hello. Oh, there was public outreach through our town planner. He put out a survey to businesses in town. He opened his doors to planner hours for the community. We spoke about this numerous times during our meetings, though it wasn't required as a hearing, as a general bylaw. We solicited feedback from the community every single time we spoke about it. Alec, I'm probably missing something. There was flyers that were also sent out for public engagement as well, Cheryl.
Who was provided these public flyers? Because I look at the Action Unlimited and I never saw a public hearing notice for this.
It's a general bylaw, so it was listed on our agenda, but we don't have to put out a public notice specific to that.
But that's not how we do it in Boxborough. We ask for residents' input on things, especially something that's going to be like a bylaw.
I can let our town planner speak to this more, Cheryl, about what the protocols are, but
And
yeah.
Cheryl, yeah, that's a statement. She answered the question.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can you provide us with the hard data on the research done? You said that all 12 of these businesses were surveyed. Can you provide us with the data on what the feedback was?
I cannot in particular, but perhaps our planner can provide that for you.
Do you have any hard data?
There is data.
So
I want to add that we also did a test run of one particular business that was gracious enough for us to go through their product list.
One business.
One business was gracious enough
What's the
to offer
percentage
this
of
time.
businesses in town then?
Cheryl, I don't want to argue with you
I'm
about
just
this,
saying
but
that this is not a fully formed concept, and to
one business responded to that request for the building inspector to go through their materials.
I mean,
only one responded to it. So
you folks spend months, used to have 5-hour meetings, and this wasn't even on the warrant in March, on the draft warrant. So I don't know when.
I don't think that's correct, actually.
Could you tell me when you presented this fully formed article to the select board for consideration?
Do we have a date? It's in the warrant. I don't have a date for you, Cheryl. But this has been something that the board has been talking about for well over a year, but is bringing forward now.
And I also want to support Ms. Neville's concerns. I went to your website, and in your overview, there's nothing within the 4 corners of the overview for the planning board. So I would appreciate it. We have so many boards and committees that we allow the boards and committees that have the concentration in a specific subject matter deal with those issues. Thank you.
Microphone to my right, please. Name and address.
Kate Davies, 72 Guggins Lane. I am also the chair of our sustainability committee. So the sustainability committee did discuss this item and has our commentary in the warrant in front of you. We were very supportive of this item. And I just want to say that I think that it's very, we have a volunteer sustainability committee. We have many, many items that we are working on. When the Planning Commission brought the this plastic item to us, we thought that was great. We're really happy that this committee is taking initiative in an area that I think is hugely important for this town, hugely important for the state of Massachusetts, and for our country and for future generations. So I think it's important for us to keep in mind that while process is very, very important and we should be following process, I don't think the Planning Commission has done anything that is inappropriate in terms of process. And they've brought an item that is very important to our community forward here. So I really appreciate this article. I think that many, many communities in Massachusetts have put forward much stricter bans on plastic without there being any major fallout for their businesses, and only really benefits to come from moving us away from a single-use plastic environment. It's a waste of time and money, and I think we should pass this. Thank you very much. Thank you.
Microphone to my left, please.
Dick Wagman, 86 Leonard Road. I am certainly in favor of getting rid of plastic bags as much as possible. But when I looked at this article, there was so much there I couldn't quite make out what it did. Can someone on the planning board or somewhere give me a summary that takes no more than 60 to 90 seconds or so of explaining what the effect will actually be on businesses and other things, so that I can understand what I'm going to be voting on?
Of course. We're going to have a presentation in just a moment, but the 60-second, not even, it basically eliminates plastic bags with handles from being used in the town of Boxborough. Does not impact you if you're buying groceries from Market Basket in Littleton. You can bring those things into the town. It just eliminates the sale or the issuance of plastic bags in Boxborough.
Is there a date when this thing is scheduled to take effect?
Oh, yes. Thank you. January 1st, 2027. Thank you.
Okay, I think that's a good summary. Thank you.
It also allows you to use up product if you already own it.
Okay, and let's pause for a moment because, Rebecca, you do have a presentation to go with this, which
Yes, sir.
customarily would be with the recommendation up front, but let's see it now before we continue the discussion because you can probably answer a lot of questions in the process of the presentation.
Okay. So the summary here is to your last question, to put in a general bylaw to regulate the retail use of single-use plastic checkout bags, promoting the use of reusable and recyclable alternatives. So everybody knows that plastics are kind of difficult for the environment and for our own health, but it's estimated that between 1.15 and 2.41 million tons of plastic are entering into the ocean every single year. Lots of environmental and health problems associated with that, lots of greenhouse gas emissions that are caused by the distribution and the production of plastic products. The vast majority of single-use plastics end up in landfills and burned in incinerators and discarded into the environment every single year. In 2022 alone, Massachusetts disposed of approximately 900 tons of plastic waste. So what does a plastic bag reduction bylaw do for us? It promotes healthier ecosystems, reduction of microplastics that go into our food system and into our soils and into our water. There's less pollution and cleaner communities. Boxborough stays scenic and reducing cleanup costs. We have volunteers that put in numerous hours every year cleaning up this stuff. Protects ecosystems and wildlife that get entangled in this stuff and eat it, reduces landfill waste, and it also extends the life of our transfer station, and it also doesn't pollute or contaminate our recycling. Honestly, there's costs associated with contamination of our recycling bins. And then it's just generally good for the climate. So there are many things that this is positive for our town in particular. So it does support our 2030 master plan. It's consistent, by protecting the scenic rural character of our town. It's also consistent with Goal 2 of the Open Space and Rec Action Plan, which incorporates climate resiliency into planning and zoning regulations. That's a high priority. And then, Boxborough really cares about our natural spaces, and this is a great way to protect and restore. So what types of plastic was a question does this ban? So it's simply a plastic bag with handles, like the image that you see on the screen here. And we're basically trying to support recyclable paper or reusable checkout bags like Cheryl held up. It does not impact thin film plastic bags, which might contain your dry cleaning or a newspaper. It's literally just those plastic bags with handles. Cost impacts. There are municipal savings that could be had. Over 160 communities in Massachusetts by 2024 have already implemented local plastic bags. And as I heard earlier, some of our neighbors have much more significant plastic bans and banning polystyrenes and even in one town over, 2 towns over, single-use plastic bottles even. Savings go towards annual cleanups, infrastructure repair, reduction of recycling contamination. I spoke to that earlier by removing and lowering contamination fees from our municipality. There's also environmental protection funding that is available to businesses to offset both environmental causes and any expense associated with an alternative bag option. You may know that if you go to someplace in Acton, sometimes you get charged a 10-cent fee for a paper bag. They'll ask you how many bags you're getting or using if you're not bringing your own. 5 cents of that under this goes towards an environmental cause, and then 5 cents goes back to the company owner. Then there's obviously reduced litter costs and volunteer hours. I want to give a nod to them because they were out in force recently. So I would encourage you to vote yes. It's a very small change for our town, and you can join over 160 towns. 70% of Massachusetts are doing bylaws at least this stringent, if not far more. This is consistent with Boxborough's 2021 Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Study, the 2030 Master Plan, and the Open Rec Plan. Let's protect our town, keep it beautiful and rural. Let's maximize sustainability. Let's preserve our wildlife and ecosystems, our aquifer, reduce landfill waste, and help reduce greenhouse gas emissions. That's it. Thank you.
All right, thank you. And again, pardon me for getting the sequence of events here mixed up a little bit. I did not recall that we had a presentation queued up for this one. Back to the floor. I left off, I think, on this side. So,
Do you want?
Am I back to my left? We'll go to my left, please, Cindy. Or no,
think it was
Finn, you were there
maybe
first,
right.
actually.
Yeah. Griffin Berman, 318 Codman Hill Road. I volunteer at the transfer station with the swap shed. I have volunteered with the Boxborough Minutemen picking up trash off the highway. There's a lot of plastics that we pick up. This is a very, very small step moving in the right direction of getting plastics out of our environment. To the point that we're not collecting a whole lot of data specifically from Boxborough. Yeah, we're Boxborough, not Acton, but I think it's completely legitimate to copy Acton's homework. We've got a good education system. There's, like you said, 70% of towns in our state are already doing this. You get groceries from Lowell, paper bags. Even the bigger cities are doing it. It's a very, very small step, and we did, and I was at several of the, the select board or planning meetings, and heard the input and feedback from the local businesses, which they took into account and scaled back the scope of this. Again, I feel like the feedback has been adequate, and we don't need to reinvent the wheel. If we want to do a whole new study just for Boxborough, that's time, energy, and money that we don't need to be spending on research that has already been done. Let's not reinvent the wheel. Let's just do this. Thank you.
Microphone to my left. Name and address, please.
Yes, Cindy Markowitz, Meadow Lane. Just want to address a couple of points. I believe, and I've confirmed this, that essentially any board or committee can bring forward a general bylaw of the town. Residents can also bring forward a general bylaw to the town, so there is nothing procedurally inappropriate about a board bringing a general bylaw to the town. The way the general bylaws work, the notification process, as Rebecca mentioned, does not require a public notice in the way a zoning bylaw amendment does. However, the planning board did open up our meetings and listed this as an agenda item for several meetings. I also want to point out that enough boards saw the original bylaw to vote unanimous recommendations from the Finance Committee, the Conservation Committee, the Sustainability Committee, all voted unanimously, and the Select Board all voted unanimously for this when they addressed the larger bylaw back, I believe that would be in March, in time to get this in the printed warrant in April. So those boards certainly felt they had enough information to vote at that time. I appreciate Rebecca's presentation. I wish you were able to lead with that because I think it might have answered some of the questions that came up. I'm just trying to think. Additionally, this bylaw, as any general bylaw, needs to be approved by the Attorney General's office, which if town meeting does approve it. Oh, I didn't finish my thought, but the Attorney General does get a chance to weigh in on this bylaw. The other thing I was going to say about public hearings is that the planning board did have open discussions, but the way general bylaws work, town meeting is the public hearing for a general bylaw. So this is your opportunity to weigh in. I think you've been given a fair amount of information. We did the planning board did reduce the scope of the bylaw to address some of the concerns of business. I think it's the hope that the polystyrene piece of the bylaw that was in the warrant will be looked at again. We pulled it for reasons that were explained, that business had indicated it might be a hardship. So we're going to continue to work on that. But this bylaw had been issued, people voted on it, and we are now at a point where we want town meeting to weigh in, which is exactly what we're doing. So we appreciate your consideration. Thanks.
Microphone to my right, please.
Liz Markowitz, 71 Patch Hill Road, Chair of the Conservation Commission. When this bylaw came to the commission for our review, I think all of which we approved unanimously, I think the feeling was, why didn't we think of this? You know, so I do appreciate that the planning board was proactive on this, because plastic waste, the more we learn about it, the more we realize how much it jeopardizes our health and the environment. So I look forward to this being a first step in addressing plastic waste, and I urge people to vote yes. Thank you.
Microphone to my left, please.
Christine Marlowe, 880 Depot Road. My biggest concern about this is that we only have one business that responded. So we don't really understand the financial burden that this is going to put on our businesses. The other thing is, you know, I recently learned that only like 15% of our recycling actually is recycled. And the other thing is, in the landfills now, all of these reusable bags are not biodegradable, and so they're ending up in the landfills too. So I think we really have a lot of things to consider, and I really would like to know first from the businesses how this is going to affect them. We don't have a lot of businesses, and we need their revenue in our town. So with that in mind, I would say vote no. Thank you.
Microphone to my right, please.
May I just correct that?
That's a statement. That's not a question.
Well, we had more than one business respond.
That's not a question you need to answer. Yeah.
Megan Connor, 70 Mayfair Drive. I move the question.
All right, it's been moved and seconded that we stop debate and vote now. This is non-debatable. It takes 2/3 for us to pass moving the question to stop debate. So we're just voting on stopping the debate right now. It takes 2/3. So all in favor of stopping debate on this question, raise your green card. Cards down. All opposed to stopping debate, raise your green cards. Okay, that passes by the 2/3 required. So vote now on the motion on Article 7. All in favor of Article 7, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. Motion under Article 8. And we're back to Rebecca.
Thank you.
Motion on Article 8.
Can I get the motion first?
Yeah.
Okay.
There we go.
Thank you. I move that the town vote to authorize the select board to petition the general court for special legislation to provide as set forth below. I'm sorry, isn't that supposed to, okay. Below, provided, however, that the general court may make clerical and editorial changes of form only to the bill so submitted, unless the select board approves amendments to the bill before enactment by the general court, and further that the select board is hereby authorized to approve amendments which shall be within the scope of the general public objectives of this petition. An act authorizing the town of Boxborough to prohibit use or sale of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, be it enacted by the Senate and House of Representatives in general court assembled, and by the authority of the same as follows. Section 1, notwithstanding Chapter 132B of the general bylaws or any other general or special law to the contrary, the town of Boxborough may regulate through local bylaw or Board of Health regulation the use or sale of second-generation anticoagulants, rodenticides within the town of Boxborough, including prohibiting the use of such pesticides by licensed commercial applicators as defined in 333 CMR 10.00. This act shall take effect upon its passage.
Okay, moved and seconded. Recommendation and/or presentation from the planning board, if there is one.
The planning board recommended unanimously. Thank you. Okay, this one's shorter. This article would authorize a planning board, select board, to petition the general court for home rule legislation to allow the town of Boxborough to prohibit the application and use of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, commonly referred to as SCARs, within the town of Boxborough. These pesticides are lethal, and they stop the blood clotting process for causing affected animals to slowly bleed internally for days. If enacted, the petition special legislation would permit the town to determine the extent of which the SCARs were prohibited in the Boxborough under a future general bylaw. So future general bylaw to come. This is just the petition for the state. Sad picture, but this is the unintended consequence of using rodenticides. It's a fast fix, but it can definitely impact an entire system. So this is a little bit of why we should ban SCARs, and the graphic behind kind of shows how things move through the food system, food chain. Wildlife centers in DC recently found that 85% of the sampled animals that they tested were positive for rodenticide exposure. I thought that was pretty alarming. So what happens in the food chain? Rodents are fed the poison, then scavengers eat the poisoned rodents, and then it accumulates the toxins in all sorts of predators, owls, fox, bobcats, everything we have in town. And this, on a lower level, it might be they're lethargic or they might not be able to fly, but on the larger level, they're hemorrhaging from these injuries internally. And natural rodent control is through healthy predators. Okay, so a vote on this for positive would authorize the planning board to petition the general court for home rule legislation to allow the town of Boxborough to prohibit the application and use of second-generation anticoagulant rodenticides, which would bring the town one step closer to reducing secondary predator poisoning, predator mortality, ecosystem contamination, and bioaccumulation in our own food webs. Thank you.
Okay, recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee unanimously recommends.
Recommendation from the Conservation Commission.
The Conservation Commission recommends unanimously the approval of the proposed home rule petition. Since SCARs pose a significant threat to Boxborough wildlife, including essential predator populations like raptors, through second or tertiary poisoning, which directly conflicts with our mandate to protect local ecosystems. Adopting this ban aligns with conservation goals by eliminating an alarming source of wildlife mortality and supporting natural predator-prey balances in protected open spaces. The Commission strongly urges the town to adopt this home rule petition and is hopeful that this will lead to the protection that our wildlife and natural resources deserve. Thank you.
Recommendation from the Sustainability Committee.
The Sustainability Committee recommends unanimously as written in the warrant.
Recommendation from the Select Board.
The Select Board recommends unanimously, and just as a point of order, the Select Board will do the home rule petition, not the Planning Board.
Okay, to the floor, microphone to my left, please. Name and address.
Dick Wagman, 86 Leonard Road. I guess one thing, I am definitely not in favor of rats. And I I'm concerned about taking a vote that ends up letting them proliferate more. I certainly don't want to have their predators being killed off by secondary poisons and stuff. My question is, what is an appropriate way to deal with rats if it isn't these escars? Are there other, for example, poisons that can deal with rats that don't end up accumulating in their predators' food, in their predators?
There are alternatives, but I did want to tell you that there is a draft that is not being brought forward at this time. We're taking this in a two-part request from the town, but there is a draft that does have a section that allows for the building inspector to make a judgment call if there is such a situation where this becomes unbearable in any way, shape, or form, then they can overwrite this when and if this becomes an article. I mean, a bylaw.
So that basically the building inspector could allow the use of these things in
Correct.
specific circumstances?
Correct. We do not want anything overwrought with rats in our town.
Okay, I'm still against rats.
Microphone to my right, please.
Tom Horsky, 816 Depot Road. As a person that supports Acton Pest Control, since I have a mouse problem in my house, I'm very curious if we've talked to the pest control community about alternatives, as our friend just mentioned. You know, are there much safer alternatives that would not be covered by this particular warrant?
So this is,
if you can answer.
Yeah, so I mean, this is just to petition the state. I think that is work that will need to happen during the bylaw rewrite if this gets passed.
Okay, thank you.
Microphone to my left, please.
Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. I fully support my barred owl friends. So I am not against getting rid of chemical pest control measures. My concern, again, as in the previous article, is process and procedure. I have the overview of the planning board in my hand, and nowhere in there does it say that they deal with public health or community health concerns. And also, my experience when the town has put forth homeroom petitions, the petitioner in the article has been the select board. So I'm just concerned about keeping things as process and procedure as clean as possible, having the boards and committees that have an interest in their overview, their guidelines, and their mission statement deal with concerns and keep those concerns within the four corners of their guidelines. Thank you.
Microphone to my right, please.
Kristen Hillberg, 1112 Hill Road. I'm actually in favor of this. I think it's great, and I have an answer to your questions. I recently bought electric mouse traps, and they use 4 batteries. They make them rat-sized also if you have rats. I've never heard of a rat in Boxborough. Let's not invite them here. But they're pretty cool. I mean, they're these little black boxes. They never even get to the peanut butter. They're electrocuted. It's not gross. I caught 8 mice. I tossed them out in the snow. I could see where the birds came down and ate them. So I kind of feel like it was a circle of life. And no pesticides, rodenticides, whatever it was for y'all. So Amazon, I have 8. You want to borrow some? Call me. They're awesome. So I'm an evangelist.
Seeing no one at the microphone. All in favor of the motion under Article 8, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. On to Article 9.
Mr. Moderator, I move to pass over Article 9.
Moved and seconded to pass over Article 9. Recommendation from the Planning Board, majority opinion?
Yeah, Rich Gazzardi, clerk of the Planning Board. So the majority of the Planning Board has reviewed this and has determined that this is not quite ready for review by town meeting. The article was developed originally to address the nature, style, and intensity of development we're seeing along the Route 111 corridor. After printing of the warrant, it became clear to the majority of the Planning Board that more work is needed on the article. Specifically, as you'll see in the warrant, the Planning Board, or the FinCom, took a position of 0.6, which really is just a reflection of the lack of alignment and additional work and coordination that's needed. When we looked at it further, it was determined that the Design Review Board really needs to do more work in updating the design review guidelines to provide specificity for really larger, more commercial uses along Route 111 corridor, which are different from the town center style uses, which is really the predominance of what's addressed in the design review guides. We also need to have a fluid process. We got feedback that from applicants and from businesses that we need to have a fluid, easy to use process in Boxborough for reviewing applications and promoting the work that the landowners and applicants have, and that includes to have discrete criteria and metrics for how we would evaluate those projects, or how the Design Review Board would evaluate them. So based on that, the recommendation of the majority of the Planning Board is that we pass this over and come back at a later time, possibly at fall town meeting.
Minority opinion of the Planning Board?
Thank you. The minority of the Planning Board recommends that Article 9 be brought to a vote at this evening's town meeting rather than postponed. Boxborough residents have continuously expressed concerns about the appearance of Route 111 corridor and a desire for more attractive and cohesive aesthetic. The Planning Board has been seeing applications come into the Planning Department, and the board has had very little that can be done to try to control the aesthetic of the proposed buildings, leaving the town with large and unappealing architecture along the gateway to our town center. The proposed design review process would provide much needed oversight within the business district, including consideration of building massing and spacing, roof slopes and forms, facades and architectural materials. There's no need to delay the implementation while revisions to the design guidelines are developed. There are already some standards in place within the guidelines for such businesses, and this is a time-consuming undertaking and very expensive, potentially expensive process that could take months, if not longer, to complete for the Design Review Board. So in addition to improving the visual quality of the Route 111 corridor, it's likely to enhance the value of the commercial properties along the corridor as well, if we can try to control the aesthetic there, thereby strengthening the town's tax base. And I think that we really should pursue this as soon as possible. Thank you.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Finance recommends to pass over unanimously.
Recommendation from the Economic Development Committee.
The Economic Development Committee unanimously recommends passing over this article. The current purview of the Design Review Board extends only to the town center district, and the town's established design guidelines were written for that district. The EDC recognizes that the aesthetic quality along parts of the Mass Ave could be improved. Updated design guidelines for the Business and Business 1 districts should precede the passage of a bylaw mandating design review. Furthermore, revised guidelines should reflect the reality of the district to which they apply, and the EDC recommends including business and property owner input in their establishment.
Seeing no one at a microphone from the floor, I'll call for a vote. All in favor of the motion to pass over Article 9. This only requires a majority. Cards down, all opposed? That passes by the majority. We've passed over Article 9. Motion under Article 10. Back to Rich.
I move that the town vote to amend the Boxborough zoning bylaw, section 4.2.2, by adding the following language in bold italics, deleting the language shown struck through, and further, that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the zoning bylaw be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the zoning bylaw, all as set forth in the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting warrant.
All right, moved and seconded. Recommendation from the planning board.
Yep, we do have a presentation.
And presentation.
Yep, so the planning board recommends 5-0. Okay, thank you. Go ahead. Next slide. Okay, so we propose, essentially what this article is about is increasing the maximum allowed size of an accessory dwelling unit, or ADU, from 900 to 1,000 square feet. A 2/3 majority vote is required. Next slide. So just a little bit of history on accessory dwelling units. In 2007, the town passed its first accessory dwelling unit bylaw, which allowed accessory dwelling units by special permit only. In 2013, that bylaw was revised to allow for an ADU by right. There were several sort of tweaks along the way, but fundamentally last year in 2025, there was a major rewrite, and that rewrite was to comply with the standards and requirements that were promulgated by state law, which really mandated that all the communities in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts protect ADUs and allow for an ADU up to 900 square feet by right in any district that included housing. So the issue we have in Boxborough is we've seen a crimp in terms of the 900 square feet as problematic. So we've had 6 applicants who have sought information on an ADU, and really only one of them found the 900 square feet to be feasible. So you can see the breakout there. The ones preceding, 3 of them were just solely based on size, that the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. And then 2 of them had some septic issues as well as size came into play. So by increasing the allowable size from 900 to 1,000 square feet, it would allow those ADUs by right up to 1,000 square feet. It supports the whole purpose of the ADU, which is to support a vital aging in place strategy. It also provides additional revenue streams to property owners who may want to use their property or have an ADU. And then it allows for additional small homes with minimal impact to new construction. So the recommendation is to vote yes on Article 10, and it'll increase the size of a by right accessory dwelling from 900 to 1,000 square feet.
Okay, recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee unanimously recommends.
Comments, questions from the floor? Seeing no one at a microphone. All in favor of the motion under Article 10, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the 2/3 required. Motion under Article 11.
I move that the town vote to amend the Boxborough zoning bylaw section 6.1.6 by adding the following language in bold italics, deleting the language shown struck through, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the zoning bylaw be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the zoning bylaw, all as set forth in the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting warrant. 6.1.6 parking schedule. The follow.
You don't need that's.
I don't.
That's
okay.
beyond the limit of the motion, so you can save
right.
the words because there's a lot there. Is there a second? Moved and seconded. So recommendation from the planning board and presentation if you have it.
Thank you. Okay, this article will reduce the minimum parking requirements for the majority of the office and business uses. We've seen recent trends in the market and the applications that are coming across the planning board's desk that have demonstrated a reduced demand for parking due to remote work and reduced need for in-person workforces. That photograph is one example. It's the Beaverbrook campus, and it shows, you can see the massive amounts of parking lot and underutilized. So under this provision or revision, the applicants would be required to install 2 spaces for every 1,000 square feet of gross floor area. That's half of the existing floor spaces requirement currently. So you can see it's there's a number of different uses in our parking requirements in our bylaw. This is only targeting one, and that's the office park spaces. Instead of 1 space per 250 feet of gross floor area, we're suggesting it's 1 space per 500. So basically a reduction of 50%. I kept this one really short. So support this article, vote yes, and it'll reduce the minimum parking requirements for the majority of office and business uses. Reducing parking minimums reduces paved surfaces and impervious areas, improves stormwater runoff and flooding issues, offsets urban heat island effects, offsets emissions from driving in, and extra land consumption. Thank you.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee unanimously recommends.
Comments or questions from the floor? Microphone to my left, please.
Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. Does the Economic Development Committee, where this impacts businesses, have a recommendation or an opinion on this bylaw?
We have the chair of the Economic Development Committee.
Hi, Abby Reap, 205 Old Harvard Road. I'm the chair of the Economic Development Committee, and I realized as the motion was being read that the Economic Development Committee did vote on this article, and we voted 4-0 recommending.
And in an earlier article, we talked about surveying and feedback from the businesses that would be impacted. I was wondering if someone could provide us with a general summary of the feedback that businesses provided to the planning board on this bylaw.
Sure, Cheryl. So this has been based on applications that are coming in front of the planning board. We've actually had this particular project, Beaverbrook, they actually proposed that there was a reduction in parking, and they cut it by half. So that's what's inspired this bylaw change.
Microphone to my left. Name and address, please.
Steve Jeffries, 286 Sergeant Road. So what happens to the businesses who have an existing inventory, a large inventory of parking spaces way beyond the new standard? So is that now eligible for being redeveloped or turned into more permeable surfaces? Is there any thought to that, please?
I think this is limiting or minimizing parking obligations going forward, but I would assume that if someone was to petition to reduce, that the planning board might be amenable to that.
And could they then redevelop that land, right? So if you've got 20 acres of parking lot and you wanted to give up 20 of it, you could then build another building? I'm in favor of the amendment, I really am, but I'm just wondering about what the downstream consequences are for the large parking inventories we have along Beaverbrook, for instance.
I would have to run a scenario on that.
Yeah, that's a hypothetical. You don't
It's
need
a
to answer.
hypothetical.
Yeah, okay. So that wasn't part of the deliberation.
I'm sorry?
That wasn't part of your deliberation. That you're just looking forward.
I'm sorry. I'm having a hard time hearing.
Yeah, I think it's too low.
Yeah, you can pick up the microphone. Yeah, please.
Yes. So I think to recap, what you're saying is this is only looking forward, and there's no, you did not consider in this proposal redevelopment of large inventories of existing parking space. Is that a fair summary?
This was thinking about future applications, yes.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else at a microphone, we'll take a vote on motion under Article 11. All in favor of the motion under Article 11, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the 2/3 required. Motion under Article 12.
Article 12. Hi, everybody. I move that the town vote to amend the Boxborough zoning bylaw section 9.2 by adding the following language in bold italics, and further that non-substantive changes to the numbering of the zoning bylaw be permitted in order that it be in compliance with the numbering format of the zoning bylaw, all as set forth in the May 19, 2026 annual town meeting warrant.
Is there a second? Moved and seconded. Recommendation and/or presentation from the planning board.
This will be simple. No changes, no mystery. We're just simply adding the words in bold as printed in your warrant. And those words are, and may include the sale of beverages, alcoholic or otherwise.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee.
Finance Committee unanimously recommends.
Anyone on the floor? Hearing none? Oh, here we go.
Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. Just a process and procedure on this one. I'm fine with the zoning bylaw, I promise. However, my only concern is having done the liquor licenses in this town for 16 years, is there going to be some kind of information provided to potential retail space applicants that this is just to allow them in the zoning district and this is not a de facto allowance of selling alcoholic beverages?
The select board gives liquor licenses. The rules say that these rules here, termed in this food shop, specialty food shop, it's allowed, but you need to get the permit from the select board. So do they, if they develop a property, call it a specialty food shop, and then do we tell them that yes, you could serve alcohol? I mean, I don't know if anybody actually says, hey, you can do that. We don't really ever give them a list of all the things they can and can't do. So they kind of have to ask, well, can I do this? And then we say yes. And usually they would talk to the town planner.
Okay.
And ask the question.
I would strongly suggest that planning board, select board, put this in their education of potential applicants, that this is a may, not shall. That's again, my experience working with applicants for 16 years. I don't want someone to believe that because the zoning bylaw provides them to let them do this, that they can do it without following ABCC guidelines.
If you look at the rest of the bylaw, it tells them an applicant still needs to obtain a liquor license. So, I mean, I think that's pretty clear.
Okay, I'm sorry, Mark, that wasn't in the warrant, so
The entire bylaw isn't in the warrant. No, you're right, because we're amending the prior warrant.
Right.
Prior
So
article.
I apologize. I was unaware that the existing bylaw clearly states that. I apologize for wasting your time.
Okay, no problem.
Microphone to my right, please. Name and address.
All right. Kathleen Vorse, 555 Liberty Square Road. Is this limited to the sale of alcoholic beverages for consumption on the premises only?
I think that was our intention, yes.
Yeah, I'm just concerned that it doesn't say that, and perhaps it ought
But
to.
the license would specify, again, the select board is not gonna, hasn't given out a license to take your alcohol with you other than a liquor store. So this wouldn't be, I don't, well, they could ask for a license, I would assume, to actually sell you a bottle of liquor, a bottle of wine and take it with, but they would have to come to the select board and make a case for it. They give the licenses, we give the permits.
I understand that, but I wanted to know what the planning board's intention was, if there was a specific intention. I attended a hearing for a new business in town that made a specific request for this, and it was my understanding, sitting there in the audience, it was for consumption on the premises.
That's what I heard too. But again, the intention
You're relying on
is
that being limited by the selectmen in their licensing.
may include the sale of beverages, alcoholic and otherwise. I would read that both ways, that they could potentially make a case if they wanted to, because we permit liquor stores. So if, say, a specialty food shop were to decide to offer the wine that they served you to buy a bottle, then they could apply to the select board for a license to do so.
The permitting of all alcoholic beverage liquor stores is a very detailed process.
We wouldn't know. The planning board has nothing to do with it. That's the thing.
I just don't want us to be simplifying that or believing that we're simplifying it.
We're just making it possible, where before it was murky.
Okay.
Microphone to my left, please. Name and address.
Yep, Rich Gazzardi, 92 Reed Farm Road, also a member of the planning board. So this really is just to sort of add on to what's been shared already. There was a specific business in town that was permitted as a specialty food shop. And then as part of their business plan, they wanted to serve wine or alcoholic beverages as part of their offering. And the determination was made by the code enforcement officer, building inspector, that they then had to apply to be a restaurant and then required a special permit. So they had to go through the permitting process twice to basically serve, and it didn't take away any of their obligation to go to the select board for the liquor license, which they did. It didn't take away any obligation to go to the state for their ABC permit. All this does is allow the building inspector to approve the by right use of a specialty food shop to promote more of these types of businesses, cafes, sandwich shops, bakeries in town. Thank you.
Okay, seeing no one else at a microphone. All in favor of the motion under Article 12, raise your green cards. Cards down, all opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the 2/3 required. All right, we're on to the consent agendas. The first one is the non-financial consent agenda. So again, just to remind everybody of this process, we're going to start off Articles 13 and 14 have been identified as financial non-capital consent agenda articles. These are articles that were unanimously recommended by the Select Board and Finance Committee and have been identified in advance as items that would likely pass without debate and are intended to be acted upon as a unit. So the way we'll do this for this consent agenda and all the others is I'll go through each one line item at a time. There's only two here. It's not a great example, I suppose. But if any voter objects to including one or another article in the consent agenda and you wish to debate it, just please say hold in a loud voice when I read the name of that article, and then we'll remove that from the consent agenda and debate that one separately. After the name of number 14 has been read, I will ask for a motion from Select Board Chair Kristen Hilberg that all articles remaining, and it could only be two possibilities here, that are remaining on that agenda be passed as a unit by town meeting. And then we'll go back and discuss those hold articles one at a time in the usual fashion. So, Article 13, Chapter 90 Highway Reimbursement Program. And Article 14, close completed articles to the general fund. Hearing no holds, Kristen, can I have a motion on the non-capital consent agenda Articles 13 and 14?
Yes. I move to approve the annual town meeting non-financial consent agenda warrant articles 13 through 14 in accordance with the funding sources and amounts set forth in the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting warrant under articles 13 through 14 respectively.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. We're now on to the financial non-capital consent agenda, Articles 15 through 24. Same thing. These have been identified as unanimously recommended, likely to pass. So I'll just read everyone in order. If anyone wants to pull one from the consent agenda, just yell hold, and we'll set it aside. Article 15, Cable Services and Equipment. Article 16, Compensation, Classification, and Benefits Study. Article 17, Department of Public Works underground fuel tank removal. Is that a hold? Hold on Article 17. Article 18, Police Department, Police Academy Training and Coverage Contingency. Article 19, Salary Reserve. Article 20, Amend General Bylaw, Revolving Fund, Dog License Fines. Article 21, Amend General Bylaw, Police Detail Vehicle Revolving Fund. Article 22, Department Revolving Fund Expense Limits. Article 23, Other Post-Employment Benefits OPED Trust Fund. Article 24, Grant Match for a Housing Production Plan. All right, we had a hold on Article 17. Ms. Hilberg, can I have a motion on the Articles 15, 16, and then 18 through 24?
I move to approve the annual town meeting financial non-capital consent agenda warrant articles 15, 16, and 18 through 24 for the purposes in the amounts and from the funding sources set forth in the consent agenda motions displayed at the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting under articles 15, 16, and 18 through 24 respectively.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. We'll now have a separate motion under Article 17. And that one's going to the Select Board. Wes Folks?
Oh, no, allegedly it is mine. So I move to vote, or I move that the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $50,000 for the removal and disposal of the 2 underground fuel storage tanks located at 577 Massachusetts Ave, including all costs incidental and related thereto.
Is there a second?
Second.
Moved and seconded. Recommendation from the Select Board, please.
The Select Board unanimously recommends because it's just going to cost us more the longer we wait to remove them.
Recommendation from the Finance Committee.
The Finance Committee unanimously recommends this article. The removal of the decommissioned underground tanks should be undertaken without delay in order to secure the lowest possible removal cost and to eliminate the need for continued insurance premium payments associated with maintaining the inactive tanks.
And recommendation from the Capital Committee.
The Capital Committee recommends for the reasons stated above and that it is in the capital plan.
Okay, comments from the floor. Microphone to my left, please. Name and address.
Yes, Cindy Markowitz, Meadow Lane. I just would like to understand a little bit better. As I recall, post-COVID, there were funds allocated to the town under ARPA that the town was using for various infrastructure projects. And as I recall, the fuel tanks at that time was, the removal of the fuel tanks was a high priority. And I guess that money has already been spent. I thought it was that this particular project was supposed to be included in the use of those ARPA monies. So I guess I'm asking, why wasn't this, we've known about this for many years. I believe it was on the list at the time. Why was this not, why were ARPA funds not used for this particular project?
Yeah, you get that, Mike? Yep.
Yes, so the new fuel tanks at DPW were on the ARPA list. That project in total came in much more expensive than originally anticipated, and there were many other competing interests for those ARPA funds. Because the replacement of the tanks was an immediate need because they were no longer going to be insured. The removal of them was not quite as immediate, and we had up to 5 years to do that removal. We want to do it sooner than that, but there were many other competing interests for that funding, and that's why they were split, the removal from the replacement from the removal.
Okay, I support the removal wholeheartedly. I'm just disappointed to learn that it wasn't covered by the ARPA funds for which it was originally proposed. Thank you.
Seeing no one else at a microphone, all in favor of the motion under Article 17, raise your green cards. Cards down, all opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. All right, we're taking a break from consent and looking for a motion under Article 25.
I move the town vote to transfer from free cash the sum of $116,000 for the acquisition and implementation of online permitting software to support the building department and inspectional services, including all other costs incidental and related thereto.
Okay, recommendation from the select board?
The select board unanimously recommended this article. It will modernize and streamline permitting process for the town. It will protect revenue from new growth and allow the building department flexibility to implement new fee structures for building inspectors.
Okay, and we have a presentation.
Great. Thank you, Sam, and thank you, everybody, for giving me your time tonight. So I'm here tonight seeking $116,000 to support the Office of Land Use and Permitting. Since I started here around about 4 years ago, we've been operating off of a different system, a system that unfortunately has yet to meet the needs of the constituency. This new system would support building and inspectional services, so that's everything from your residential building permits, your plumbing, your gas, your electrical. Funding will support the implementation, which is a 1-year cost of training and services support, as well as a 3-year services contract. So you won't be hearing from me again until 4 years from now if we are successful on this article. The issue we're trying to address here, it relates directly to the experience you have in the building department. So we've experienced delays in our permitting, most recently a potential loss in revenue, and overall dissatisfaction from you as residents of the town. Think, for example, you or your contractor files an application for a building permit and you're stuck in these delays. You don't know the status of your permit. You don't know how long it's going to take. You might have even had to check into a hotel on the temporary basis while you're waiting for the work to be completed. Oftentimes that is in part due to the delay in services we have because of our outdated system. Most recently, as I noted, we did experience a potential loss in revenue, namely our software stopped reporting data to the assessor's office. What that risks is your new growth, and it puts the burden back on you, the average everyday taxpayer, as opposed to those who are improving their homes. To address this problem, I conducted several interviews of different permit providers, so different services. I then advanced 3 of those softwares to my entire team, as well as the assistant town administrator. We conducted demos and interviews of those candidates, and we ultimately brought forward OpenGov. OpenGov being the industry standard, so to speak, in online permitting software. Over 1,900 jurisdictions, whether that be regional governments, town governments, city governments, already use this software, 110 of those or more in Massachusetts alone, as multiple communities are already considering bringing this software on board for this year. Some local examples include Acton, Bolton, Harvard, and Littleton. Bolton and Harvard both being comparable communities to Boxborough, relatively in size and scope. So OpenGov directly addresses the delays we're seeing in our software. It will expedite the permitting and inspectional services, whether it's the initial submission of a permit or the delay you experience when the inspector is then coming out to do inspections. It will allow you to understand the process, and we are confident it will reliably report the new growth back to the assessor's office. It'll also drastically improve our ability to report and conduct data analysis. Frankly, it's frustrating that I can't sit here and tell you exactly how long it takes for me to process a permit in the Building or Inspection Services Office, but that's because our existing software doesn't have that capability. A quick breakdown for you of year one. So as I noted, there is a training and implementation cost in year one, as well as a service. So that service is our annual subscription. You'll see the training and implementation disappears in year 2 and year 3, and it's only the service cost. That is a total of $116,000. What I will note is that that is not the true impact of this software. We already pay for an existing online permitting software that I've referenced before that I feel is outdated and does not provide you adequate service. And so this breakdown helps relay to you the more realized impact cost. I'm not going to sit up here and tell you it's not more expensive than your existing software. It absolutely is. But me and my team feel that this is the best method for us to serve you as the residents. Notably as well, and Sam referenced it in his initial presentation, we have recently worked with the Select Board to revise a method in which we assess our inspectional fees, in which we then distribute that revenue back to the inspectors. We expect that this recent revision will yield $30,000 per year in new revenue from the department, which will more than offset the increased cost that you would experience from this software. So again, despite the cost difference, we do feel that this system is necessary for us to provide you adequate service as a constituency, and we request $116,000 in funding for a 3-year contract.
Okay, recommendation from the Finance Committee. Majority recommendation first.
Okay, so a majority of the Finance Committee do not recommend this article. This is a very expensive piece of software. We could not see a clear financial benefit to this. This will be an annual expense going forward, so this will impact the tax rate going forward.
The minority opinion of the Finance Committee?
A minority of the Finance Committee recommends this article. This investment strengthens the town's ability to capture new growth, a key driver of long-term revenue. It will streamline workflows, improve visibility, and enable existing staff to operate more efficiently without adding headcount. The current system risks incomplete reporting of new growth. Improving accuracy can yield meaningful financial benefit over time. Delay is likely to increase eventual implementation costs while prolonging current inefficiencies.
Questions or comments from the floor?
Yeah, thanks. Al, can you just tell me, is OpenGov owned by the same company that does our wonderful budgeting software, ClearGov?
Thank you for that question, Becky. No, it is not the same company, and it is a different software.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, and for the record, that was Becky Neville, Middle Road. You didn't know. Microphone, please. Name and address, please.
Hi, Brittany Zorin, 49 Spencer Road. In the summary here, it's articulated that the current system has risk new growth calculations. Can you just expand upon what that means, like how there's been a risk using the existing system?
Yeah, so and thank you for that question, Brittany. A previous assessor did point out to the office that their database did not reflect recent applications that had been approved and ultimately completed. Our software is intended to report that directly to the assessor side. So then the next time they do an assessment, they have the new data. So say, for example, you do a major renovation on your house, that will be added to your assessment. We found a data gap where that had not occurred for approximately a year, maybe less. And we had estimated through our account executive at OpenGov that approximately $9,000 could have been lost had we not gone back to a manual permit entry in which my staff walked the permit over to the assessor's office and they manually entered it to the system.
Thank you.
Microphone to my right. Name and address, please.
Mark White, 93 Sarah's Way. So, new growth. So, how much new growth are we talking about? I mean, what's it worth? It's $116,000 to realize our new growth quickly, because we get it eventually, right? So I guess I'm trying to understand the metric. How much new growth are we missing out on, and what's that worth in taxes in a year, for example?
Yeah. Thank you for that question, Mark. So in our estimate, that was $9,000. I'll note that that was in a particularly down year in looking at the overall revenue and the construction permits that had been put in. Let's take, for example, a larger issue, or a larger project. The planning board having recently approved the park at Beaver Brook. This could affect a new construction of a much larger structure that would add new commercial revenue to the books. And that's the revenue that we're trying to protect going forward. So while it's $9,000 at this time, that's both a compounding effect. If we had missed it altogether, then it would be $18,000 in year 2, $27,000 by year 3. But if this happens again, you risk much larger new growth in the cases of commercial development.
Well, the big ones are easy to just walk down the hall. I mean, if you know something's worth $50,000, you don't have to wait for it to pop up on the network. You just walk it down the hall and say, here's a $50,000 bill you guys can send out. I don't know why. Again, I'm just trying to see how it equates. I mean, I'm all for modernizing your permitting software. A lot of towns are doing it, but it's a lot of money, especially now it's basically going to be $20,000 a year once you step off of it for upkeep, right? The subscription. And we don't know how much that's going to go up. But I mean, if we're not saving $30,000 a year in new growth, I mean, if you want to make a case for the efficiencies, I think you're safer there with me. But on the new growth part of it, it's just like it works its way up eventually. And I think most of it, if it's $9,000, but we're paying $20,000 to capture 9, I think we're losing money on that. But
great feedback, Mark. I will note that in comparing the two softwares and the escalating cost, we've been under the previous software for 8 years, and in that time, we've seen a 50% cost escalation, and they were recently acquired by another company. So we do anticipate their costs will continue to go up at a higher rate versus this being more stably predicted over the course of a 3-year contract.
Microphone to my left, please. Name and address.
Griffin Berman, 318 Codman Hill Road. With the opposition of the Finance Committee, I am wondering if any other software options were explored. So there's an existing software that you expect the cost to go up and it's not as good as the OpenGov that you're looking at. Were there any other alternatives that were explored?
Great question, Finn. So I interviewed personally 10 different companies. Of those 10, I selected 3, including OpenGov, to go forward. Of the 3 I selected, they were at varying ranges. So you had something approximately the same cost as our current software, something in the middle, and this end of the spectrum as well. We then had those providers come in and give a demo to our team. Our team then evaluated and scored them as you would through a procurement process. We ultimately found that the other softwares would have required major coding on our end, which is an intensive process that we don't have the skill set to do adequately. And the other softwares, frankly, did not impress us. One of them actually had a meltdown midway through the demo, didn't fill us with a lot of confidence, and we identified many of the same issues that we experience in our current delayed systems.
Okay. And so this was the higher end of that spectrum of those 10 different companies you were looking at?
That's correct. I interviewed 2 different companies that were on this higher end of the spectrum. Of those 2, this one was advanced forward, and ultimately this one was selected.
Okay, thank you.
Microphone to my right, please.
Sarah Lovato, 66 Hager Lane. I am all in support of this, having used this system several times and finding it very confusing. I was curious, is there a plan to migrate the existing data into this new software as well? Is that included in this cost?
Yes, so that is built into the $30,000 you see in the year 1 cost. That not only covers our training and our upgrading, but it also includes migration. And effectively, the fewer trainings we need, the even more data we can migrate over. So we're working with an 8-year sample size. We're confident we can at least capture the last couple years, which is some of our larger volume permits. And then we would also be able to enter manually old data in.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks, Sarah.
Okay, microphone to my left, please. Name and address.
Hi, Matt Miller, 140 Swanston Road. I had a question about the other software you used. You said that one of them would need a significant amount of coding to get it up to the standards you need. Did you figure out how much that would actually need, and would that cost of that software, along with that hiring someone to develop the additional packages for that software, is that equivalent or is that less than what you would be paying for OpenGov?
Good question. Nice to meet you, Matt. The software, or the cost, I should say, of coding is not something we can directly realize because no one on my team has that skill set. I will note that we are currently upgrading a different record system as well that does require intensive coding, and I've seen my team members spend tens of hours a week trying to do that coding. You get into territory where mistakes can happen and we could potentially corrupt the system. So while I don't have a realized cost immediately, the labor hours alone would detract from our ability to conduct other projects that do cost money as well.
Yeah, so would, and when I say like the cost to develop it, I'm saying like outsourcing it, like would that company have a pool of people you can hire from, or you could contract them to develop the plugins you need instead of doing it within house?
Good question, and apologies I didn't answer that more directly. The company that we were using noted that they would have to subcontract that out.
Cheryl Mahoney, 188 Liberty Square Road. Hi, Alex. I fully support this initiative. Again, previously working in town hall, I saw some of the catastrophic infrastructure failures that occurred for inadequate software, significant staffing turnover. I personally have been waiting for a contractor to take care of some septic work. I think we're going on 2 years now, and one of the delays was he had to wait 6 months to get an answer on his application because they couldn't find it. Also, I know that our inspectors are professional contractors. They are not software engineers, and I do know that the existing software was problematic for them, and which caused issues with them inputting in their inspections, which again caused delays that you were referring to, people having to live over at the Regency while they're waiting for the insulation permit to get signed off so the drywaller can come in, et cetera, et cetera. Having experienced several software improvements in my career, I believe this is money well spent, and I'm hoping there is the potential that this could migrate into the other land use boards at some point in the future.
Thank you for that feedback, Cheryl. Apologies for the delay in processing your permit. And yes, to the point that you were driving at, this program does have expanded models, so at a much smaller cost in year 4, if we were successful here and we wanted to expand it, say the planning board, for example, was willing to accept applications via this system and track them through that system, that would be acceptable as well, as could our Conservation Commission, our health agency, and any of our other permitting boards and committees.
Seeing no one else. Oh, name and address again, please, Finn.
Griffin Verman, 318 Codman Hill Road. If coding is one of the barriers to being able to use other possible tools, and it sounds like this might be something that would apply hypothetically to, you know, other upgrades to our IT infrastructure. Would it make, like, has it been discussed or explored maybe hiring somebody for the town to help with IT issues, as expanding an IT team?
So I can't speak to that. That's not within the realm of my purview, so I have no answer.
All right, thanks.
Seeing no one at a microphone. All in favor of the motion under Article 25, raise your green cards. Okay, cards down. All opposed to Article 25. That passes by the majority required.
Thank you, everybody.
Okay, we're back to consent agenda. This time the capital consent agenda. These are Articles 26 through 41. I'll read them off in order. If you want to hold one, yell out so I can hear it, and we'll set it aside. Otherwise, we vote on them as a block. Article 26, Town Hall and Library Panic Alarms. Article 27, Town Clerk Poll Pad Replacement. Article 28, Information Technology Hardware Upgrades and Replacements. Article 29, MS4 Permitting. Article 30, Boxborough Museum Basement HVAC Dehumidifier. Article 31, Police Department Fingerprint Machine. Article 32, Police Department Police Command Vehicle. Article 33, Police Department Flooring. Article 34, Emergency Management. Article 35, Fire Department Personal Protective Equipment. Article 36, Fire Department Cistern Inspections and Repairs. Article 37, Fire Department AEDs and life-saving equipment. Article 38, Fire Department self-contained breathing apparatus. Article 39, Fire Department mobile and portable radios. Article 40, Fire Department mobile computers. And Article 41, Fire Department first due scheduling and payroll software. Hearing no holds, Kristen, may I have a motion on the capital consent, Articles 26 through 41, please?
Okay, I'll just be loud. I move to approve the capital consent agenda warrant articles 26 through 41 in accordance with the funding sources and amounts set forth in the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting warrant under articles 26.
I don't think you have the right motion in front of you, Kristen.
I'm reading the one in your packet. All right, very good. Okay. Yes. I move to approve the annual town meeting capital consent agenda warrant articles 26 through 41 for the purposes in the amounts and from the funding sources set forth in the consent agenda motions displayed at the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting under articles
2.
2.
Check 1, 2.
Moved and
You don't really
seconded.
want me to do it again.
Joe, any technicalities here? Okay, we're all good.
Check.
I'll
1, 2.
go with the motion in the second. All in favor, raise your green cards. Okay, cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. Okay, we're on to the 2/3 vote consent agenda. These are Articles 42 and 43. I'll read them in order. Article 42, Department of Public Works, two-yard stationary compactors. Article 43, Department of Public Works, road maintenance. Hearing no holds on those, Kristen, a motion on the 2/3 vote required consent agenda, Articles 42 and 43, please.
Okay.
And do you have the right
Works.
motion packet this time?
I got it.
You got it from Joe.
Got it.
All right, good.
Yep. Okay. I move to approve the annual town meeting 2/3 required consent agenda warrant articles 42 through 43 for the purposes in the amounts and from the funding sources set forth in the 2/3 required consent agenda motions displayed at the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting under articles 42 through 43, respectively.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the 2/3 required. We're now on to the Community Preservation Fund consent agendas, Articles 44 through 50. Same process. I'll read them one at a time. Article 44, Community Preservation Fund, the CPC report, and establish fiscal year 2027 reserves. Article 45, Community Preservation Fund, open space, including recreation, conservation trust fund. Article 46, Community Preservation Fund, historic resources, replacement of windows at the 1857 Schoolhouse Number 2. Article 47, Community Preservation Fund, historic resources, town hall roof replacement. Article 48, Community Preservation Fund, historic resources, cemetery restoration. Article 49, Community Preservation Fund, open space, including recreation, playground improvements to Flera. Article 50, Community Preservation Fund, community housing, Boxborough Rental Assistance Program. Hearing no holds, I'll call for a motion from CPC, Chair John Fallon, for Articles 44 through 50. Using the proper motion packet, of course.
I think this actually works.
John, from wherever you're comfortable.
I move to approve the annual town meeting Community Preservation Fund consent agenda warrant articles 44 through 50 for the purposes in the amounts and from the funding sources set forth in the May 19th, 2026 annual town meeting warrant under articles 44 through 50 respectively.
Moved and seconded. All in favor, raise your green cards. Cards down. All opposed, raise your green cards. That passes by the majority required. Ms. Hilberg, may I have a motion to dissolve the May 19th, 2026 Boxborough Annual Town Meeting?
I move to dissolve the May 19th, 2025 Boxborough Annual Town Meeting.
Is there a second? Seeing no one in a microphone. All in favor, raise your green cards.
Yes.
Cards down. Any opposed? Well, that passes by the majority required. Well done, everybody. 10:06, 85 degrees. Thank you for your time and attention and patience through the heat.